Alrighty, welcome everybody to the first of many videos this summer on the Miller Football YouTube channel. If you're familiar with the series I did last summer back on my podcast's channel, we're going to be talking about all 32 NFL teams in depth, taking a look at what happened last year, what went right, what went wrong, what they did during the offseason, and then kind of talking about our predictions for what's coming up in the future. But obviously, if it's not apparent by Jarett's wonderful background or the jerseys we're all wearing, we're going to be talking about the Chicago Bears, starting things off right with the best team in the NFL, obviously. Definitely didn't finish with the worst record in the league last year or anything like that. But just to start things off, go ahead and introduce our guest. To my right, we've got Grayson, also known as the BatDuck. Below me, we've got Rishab, also known as DaWindyCity Productions. Y'all know who this guy is. He doesn't need an introduction. And then, of course, in the bottom right, we've got my boy Jarett, also known as JRice Sports. So before we jump into this, fellas, how are we all doing today?
I'm all right.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm good too. I'm waiting for football to start. It's super boring.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my God.
Obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to kind of start things off, I think the first thing we want to talk about here, or I want to talk about here, is the first big thing that happened to the Bears last year. And I know it feels like a billion years ago, but the whole Roquan Smith situation, almost a year removed from that whole fiasco. How are we feeling?
I personally feel fine with it. We got two great replacements this offseason, and Roquan didn't really fit our scheme. So instead of paying $20 million a year, we get two guys who basically cost $20 million a year. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement on that one. Like Roquan, obviously an elite linebacker, top 5, top 3 linebacker in all of football. He's a great player, which, it sucks to lose great players. But like Grayson had mentioned, didn't really fit the scheme, which was kind of evident this year. I feel there was some games where he looked like the best linebacker in football. And then the next week, he got completely taken out of the game and it was kind of flip-flopping each week. And like he said, we got great replacements for him. We got a second-round pick for him. It was for the now, obviously, our season kind of went downwards once we traded him. But I think in the long run, that's going to turn out as a great move for our team overall.
Yeah, you got to be happy about it. I mean, we replaced him with Tremaine Edmonds, who is also, really young. He's only 24, I want to say, or maybe 25. So still in the prime, not even reaching the prime of his career yet. You could argue maybe a better scheme fit than Roquan was. Even though Roquan, I loved him too, obviously. But, also getting TJ Edwards and Jack Sanborn on top of that, you're paying 3 guys for basically the price of 1 almost. Not exactly, but it's kind of close, right? So you're getting a, higher upside, deeper linebacking core than only having like 1 guy, in Roquan Smith, which I wish him the best of luck. I had nothing against him, but I think it's, it worked out for both sides. Like Roquan is the highest paid linebacker now in the NFL, and the Bears still got, better scheme fits and a more deep linebacking core now. So,
Yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. I completely agree with Jarett, especially talking about how up and down Roquan was last year in Chicago. Now, obviously, once he went to Baltimore, he balled out, right? I think he was like, he might have been an all-pro. I know he was being talked about as one of the best linebackers in football by the end of the year. And I think the big thing that all of you mentioned is the scheme fit, right? Roquan's fantastic, but at the end of the day, he's not a tone setter, so to speak. He's not a do-it-all type of guy. He's a little undersized. He's just a really good in coverage, and he'll put his head down and hit somebody if he has to. But now we've got Edmonds, who's this big, hulking behemoth of a linebacker that fits this 4-2-5, 4-3 defense, whatever you want to call it, a lot better. So as much as it sucks to lose a superstar caliber player, like you guys mentioned, we got a great return on investment. And I think everybody wins in this situation. I know everyone wants to look for a winner in a trade, but I do think all 3 sides, the Ravens, the Bears, and Roquan Smith, all ended up with the best case scenario after the trades. So yeah, I don't understand how anyone can complain. And honestly, I hate talking about it at this point because it's so far like in the past and kind of irrelevant at this point. But, if you're recapping the season, you kind of got to bring it up. Which brings me to the next thing here, which is just talking about what happened last year. And obviously, as I alluded to in the intro, we were the worst team in football, at least record-wise. Now, if if you sat down and watched the games, that didn't look like a team that would end up with the worst record in football. And we kind of got lucky with Lovie Smith pulling something out of his ass in the final moments of the first slate of games in week 18 and really bailing us out there. But like I said, 3-14 record, 4th in the NFC North, 2-7 at home, 1-7 on the road, 0-5 in our last 5 games. I mean, it was brutal, but there were a lot of really good things to take away from last year. There was a lot of development for our young guys. Obviously, Justin Fields, who I'm sure we'll talk about 15 times throughout the course of the next 90 minutes or so. We saw Cole Kmet really take a step forward in the back half of the year as the primary receiver in the offense once Mooney kind of went down with an injury. We saw Jack Sanborn emerge as one of the best young linebackers in football. The secondary kind of had its ups and downs, but, guys like Kyler Gordon really stepped up in the back half of the year. So the next question I have for y'all is just, who were you most impressed by last year in such an abysmal season, except for Justin Fields? That's the cop-out answer. We got to talk about somebody else. Who was it that really caught your eye last year?
I guess I'm gonna go first. Personally, Cole Kmet balled out. In my opinion, he should have been a Pro Bowler. If he was not, I don't think he was.
He wasn't.
The Pro Bowl is a joke at this point, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
Huntley can get in, but Kmet can't, whatever. But Cole Kmet developed so nicely over the season, even though we were abysmal. But he balled out, and I can't wait to see him become a Pro Bowler this year, hopefully, unless the Pro Bowl committee wants to, screw the Bears again. So, yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna do one that's not like a super obvious one because I want to be a little bit different. I'm actually going to go with Kyler Gordon. I know you kind of already mentioned him. I think he started off a little rough, I'm not going to lie, but I think it has a lot to do with him kind of not having a permanent position with the defense because he was switching like from outside to inside due to injuries and whatnot. He never really had that like stability at the position to kind of get things under wrap. And also, cornerback is an insanely hard position to translate to in the NFL. At first, a lot of Bears fans already wrote him off within like the first 3 games because he did bad, and Bears fans like to overreact to literally everything that ever happens. It wasn't until kind of like that New England game, I'd say, he almost had the pick 6 if Tyquan Thornton wasn't the fastest human alive. Kyler Gordon, he got the first pick, and then it's kind of like that you see him get that confidence. And throughout the rest of the season, you kind of he keeps making those splash plays here and there. I still think he needs to work on the consistency kind of, but he made enough splash plays where you can kind of get a good idea of what kind of a player he is. Also, he is an insane athlete. I don't know if y'all have seen like the video from it was either minicamp, OTAs or whatever, where it's just a video of him jumping. My man gets like 10 feet in the air. He's an insane athlete. He's quite a good hitter for his size. Like he's not super big, but he's not afraid to tackle. His coverage isn't bad. And I think that last year he did enough that I have confidence in him being a starting, like our number 2 cornerback or, in the slot, nickel, whatever. I need to see more, but I was very impressed with him for how bad our defense was.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm gonna go with Tevin Jenkins, the guy that was about to be traded, or there's reports about him like potentially wanting out or not, not meshing with the new coaching staff. So a lot of people, wrote off Tevin Jenkins before the season even started because it didn't seem like he had a spot on the team, in the rotation, but he wins that, starting right guard job. And in his first year playing a new position, which he never played before, keep in mind, he played like a top 3, top 5, right guard, at least according to PFF. Now, I know PFF is not always totally accurate, but still, like, I think anybody that watched the games could tell that Tevin Jenkins was probably our most consistent and best lineman, and he's still only like 24, I think, or 25 or something like that. So still, has a lot of high upside. Definitely has a nasty mentality that Poles wanted on this offensive line, and really good run blocker too. I mean, probably our best run blocker from last year as well, which is, I think that's going to continue on the left side. I know he's going to be switching to left guard now, which is not ideal because, he's moving 2 times now within 3 years with the Bears. So it's not like been the most, it's been a pretty rocky start for him to begin the season or to begin his career with the Bears, but he still, balled out last year, didn't really complain after the initial, training camp period where he was inserted into that position. So I got to go with Tevin Jenkins. I think that on the offense, he was by far, our best player besides Justin Fields.
Yeah, I like the Tev pick a lot. Like you said, seeing a guy who was completely written off by a lot of people coming out and playing like one of the best interior offensive linemen in football is fantastic. Ironically, given the situation up front, I'm also going to talk about an offensive lineman, and that's Braxton Jones, who really, really caught my eye last year. I mean, we're talking about a 5th-round pick who, in year one of his career on an abysmal offensive line, stood out as one of the better tackles in football, like, period. I know he doesn't get as much hype as like the tackle duo in Seattle that really balled out last year, but Braxton Jones, by all accounts, was fantastic. Like I said, we're talking about a 5th-round pick from a small school that was just someone a lot of people thought Ryan Poles was taking as depth or taking a flyer on, and maybe down the road would pay dividends. But here he is, year one of his career, balling out, being one of 2 bright spots on the worst offensive line in football. And suddenly, this offensive line has a couple really nice building blocks to work off of, and we'll talk about some of the other offensive line moves that got made. But yeah, the season last year, like I said, just totally abysmal. But it was really nice to see some of these young guys really step up. Other than the guys we mentioned, guys like Jack Sanborn played well. I think I already did this. I'm just going to skip over this. I'm repeating myself just because I don't want to talk about the numbers I have pulled up in front of me with how bad our team was. Um, Looking at EPA per play for the Chicago Bears last year, we were 2nd in rushing, which is not surprising to anybody unless you're that one site. I can't remember who it was that just posted a graphic of like the 7 best rushing attacks in football and left the Bears off, but included like the Colts and the Jets. I don't know.
It's one of those fantasy things, I think.
No, I don't think it was fantasy. I think they were straight up
3rd team or whatever they're called.
Probably, yeah. Those guys are idiots. I forgot it was them. I hate that I even brought it up now because I cannot stand them.
They would leave Walter off the top 10 running backs.
Yeah. Anyways, 2nd in rushing EPA per play, and then it's just completely downhill from there. 28th in passing, 27th in run defense, 32nd in coverage, 23rd, and then looking at points for the season, 23rd in points scored across the league, 32nd in points allowed, and 31st in point differential. So the good thing about last season is this is a team that was completely stripped, right? We saw all these moves like the Roquan Smith trade, the Robert Quinn trade, where it was very apparent that Ryan Poles knew this team was not going to be going places. So he stripped it down to the bones and let these young guys develop. And sure, it came at the cost of a bad record and not looking great statistically. But the beauty of the Bears is it's all uphill from here, hopefully. I got to throw that hopefully in there because we've been here so many times. But it's looking like we're going to be in a really, really good spot going forward. But one move that got made that was kind of the opposite of tearing the team down is trading a 2nd-round pick for Chase Claypool, who I know at least our fan base has very conflicting opinions about. I think all the other fan bases have kind of written him off as the worst trade ever made ever. But that's my next question here for you guys is how do we feel about Claypool and kind of what his role is going forward with the team? Do we think he's going to be here past the end of this year, or do we think Ryan Poles royally screwed the pooch on this one?
I guess I'm going to go first. I guess we're going to go clockwise.
Yeah, we've got an order established. Just keep running with it.
All right. I like Claypool. I think he can do well for the team. I think he can develop nicely. But I don't think he's here after the season. I think Mooney is gonna ball out this season. I'm a big Mooney guy. I know a lot of people aren't. And we just drafted Tyler Scott this year, who is an amazing receiver out of Cincinnati. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that our wide receiving core is going to develop more throughout the season, and we're going to be fine. I think Claypool might just ask for too much money at the end of the season and not be productive enough to order that much money. So I think Poles will probably make the move to get rid of him. I like him. I really hope he does well. I hope he does get the bag eventually, but I don't know if it'll be here in Chicago at the end of the season.
For me, I'll letting it be known whenever the trade happened last year. At the time, I wasn't a big Claypool guy. Like, it just wasn't a fan of him in Pittsburgh. I hate being negative. So at the same time, I'm not saying I'm completely awful move because I disliked it personally. I don't know everything. I mean, it could turn out well. Last season, I did like that once we did trade for him, we kind of Fields like I feel like he doesn't trust his receivers enough, given, he was throwing it to Pettis and St. Brown, who were like wide receiver fives on most teams. We got Claypool, who's, he's never going to be a wide receiver one. He's not an elite guy, but I think he can be a solid wide receiver two, or top end wide receiver three, which is what he's probably going to be here in Chicago. But once we did get him, I think his first game, I want to say, was against Miami. And you could tell right away from that game that Fields kind of had more trust in Claypool than his other receivers and took those deep shots to him, which I really like to see. We all know Fields has an insane deep ball. It didn't always turn out well, like the end of the game whenever there was just the missed DPI. But I don't hate the move now, but I don't love it either. It's still kind of like I need to see more of what's going to happen. To go off of Grayson's point of drafting Tyler Scott, the only thing that concerns me with that is Scott is a Mooney clone. Like their physicals, everything is like the exact same thing, which I'm a big Mooney guy. My girlfriend's favorite player in the entire league is Mooney, so I hope we keep him. But I think if they were going to keep one of Claypool or Mooney, at this point in time, I would say they'd probably keep Claypool because he's that big-bodied receiver that we don't really have, and Scott could come in and fill that Mooney role. It'd basically be the same player. Which I hope doesn't happen. I want to keep Mooney over Claypool, but if Claypool balls out, then we could go with that route instead.
Yeah, I kind of agree with both of you guys. I think both of you guys, covered most of the points there. But yeah, being totally honest, like again, like you guys, I don't want to be too negative or, root against the player, but I can't see a way right now at this point in time that Claypool's going to be extended. He could be, obviously, right? If he has a good season next season, but he's not going to be extended before the season starts. There's no chance that's going to happen. And, even going forward, like I do believe in Mooney more than I believe in Claypool because Mooney already has that chemistry going with Justin Fields. And that's a big thing. I mean, Justin Fields, he throws the guys he's comfortable throwing to. And Mooney is, one of the guys he's comfortable throwing to. So I think that unless Claypool is like a crazy year, 800, 900,000 plus yards, which is possible, keep in mind, because, his first couple years in Pittsburgh were really, really good years. And that's why I was actually pretty excited about adding him to the team because I thought that he would give Justin Fields finally that guy going down the field that could be like a big body possession type of guy, which we haven't really had for Justin Fields, so far in his career, besides for Allen Robinson, who was kind of checked out all of that year. So it kind of made sense at the time. So like, I don't want to criticize Ryan Poles too much for the move because at the time, I think it did make somewhat sense because we didn't have a good receiving core. We did not know that we were going to have the worst record in football and then eventually get DJ Moore. So you can't really do like a, looking back type of thing and say like, oh, you shouldn't have done that because you never know, what the situation could have been. So obviously though, going back, I don't think Ryan Poles would be willing to sacrifice pick number 32 for Chase Claypool because there's going to be, other guys available in future drafts as well with all the picks that we have that we could, use a pick on a receiver and, we're not going to need Chase Claypool at that point. So at this point in time, not looking really good, but we'll see what happens next season.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. Once again, it's an awkward situation for Claypool because, like Rishab said, it's not a move that you can look back at and be like, yeah, this definitely shouldn't have happened because we don't know that everything was guaranteed in the offseason. We didn't know we were going to get DJ Moore. We didn't know that our receiver core was going to go from complete dog water to actually looking pretty respectable right now. So if we were rolling into the season with Mooney and Claypool as our 1 and 2, it would be a different conversation. Mm-hmm. But because we did end up going and getting DJ Moore and we had the worst record in football, now it's this weird narrative that the Bears traded a first-round pick for Claypool and Steelers fans are running wild, which they always do. Let's be honest. They are one of the most intolerable fan bases in the league. But yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's tough for Claypool. I feel like he's in a can't win situation because if he plays bad, he's not going to stick around in Chicago and another team might not take a chance on him because he's probably going to get labeled as one of these guys that just doesn't have the work ethic. He doesn't have the drive, the mentality to really be a good receiver in football. Because again, like Rishab said, he was coming out in Pittsburgh and balling out. He looked fantastic his first 2 years. He was getting the Mapletron nickname, all these Calvin Johnson comparisons with his size. And now all of a sudden he's in Chicago and he's getting like less than 30 targets in half of a season and then getting hurt and having to play with a backup quarterback. And his only highlight play was, I guess he had two. He mossed Sauce Gardner with Trevor Siemian throwing him the football. And then he had the should have been drawn PI against Miami that could have won the game. But, the refs were the refs in that game. So, like I said, he's just, speaking of the Steelers and the Bears, I just got a notification. Former Bear Nick Kwiatkowski just got picked up by Pittsburgh, and my heart just shattered into a billion pieces. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I mean, I'm just happy he has a job. I didn't think he would get one because he's also a player in an awkward spot. But yeah, Claypool, it's tough. I hope he plays very well, and he gets a contract. Won't be in Chicago because there's no chance in hell we're going to be paying 3 wide receivers. Obviously, the Tyler Scott pick is fantastic insurance. He can be a great number 3. And we have a ton of draft picks. We can probably get a replacement, something like that.
I do see a world where maybe if he plays well enough, but not like fantastic, he gets like traded to like Atlanta for like a 3rd or something like that, where they need a wide receiver really badly. Like maybe Drake London isn't panning out that well, but like going somewhere where we can get something back for him, but and he can still get the bag at the end of the season. I'd be super happy for that, and especially for him, because I like the dude. He's just in a really awkward spot in Chicago. So
yeah. And like I said, I don't believe this whole narrative that he's not a hard worker and he doesn't want it. He's in the NFL. If he's in the NFL, he wants it. These reporters, they make these claims all the time. We've seen them about Fields. He's the first guy out, last guy in, all that shit. And we just know for a fact that's not the case. So I do hope there's a future for Claypool somewhere. I've really liked him throughout his career. I was super pumped when we traded for him. It's just he kind of got here at the wrong time, and now we're in a weird spot with him. So
I will add though about the whole Claypool thing. I don't think he has to be a top receiver in Chicago or even stay for longer than this next season for it to be considered a win of a trade for us.
Yeah.
As long as he is a part of the, progressing Justin Fields into a franchise guy and helps develop Fields, then that's a win in my book. I would gladly give up the 32nd pick to get a franchise guy. I mean, it's not as big of a deal. Other fan bases aren't going to see it that way, but if you actually delve deep into it, that's all I need for this to be considered a W.
Yeah, no, once Joey Porter is a fantastic corner, which I very much think he will be, it's going to be written off by most fans as one of the worst trades ever. And that's just not the case. I mean, he has all the tools to be, and we'll talk about that here soon. I love Tyreek Stevenson. But moving on away from the abysmal season we had last year and into some more fun stuff. Free agency. I know there were some Bears fans that were pretty disappointed with what happened. But my God, I think Ryan Poles cooked. I absolutely love what happened this year. Now, with free agency, I have 2 questions. I'll just kind of lump them here together because I think they go hand in hand. Again, we're gonna put a little asterisk on this because there's an obvious answer, I think, for most people. What was your favorite free agent signing we made, and what free agent were you the saddest to see go, not including David Montgomery?
I'm gonna have to pass this for a minute while I recollect the whole offseason because it was
okay.
After David went, I was super upset and I literally closed myself off for a day or 2. So
that's fair.
Okay. My favorite signing is it's got to be one of the linebackers, but I'm gonna go with TJ Edwards. I think Edmonds personally, I think he'll be the better player overall, but TJ Edwards, it's a Chicago guy. I really liked him in Philadelphia, which also way back before free agency started, I never ended up doing it, but I was going to do a, possible Bears free agents, film study thing for TikTok and YouTube. And I had asked people for possible signings that the Bears could make. The only person who responded was David. And he actually, one of the players he mentioned was TJ Edwards. So I did get to watch a little bit of him. I just never recorded myself going in depth on the film. But TJ Edwards, big fan of his. I also think we got him for a steal contract-wise. I don't remember off the top of my head what the details of the contract were. But I remember when I saw it, I'm like, that is a great deal. For someone to take that going from, a Super Bowl contender like the Eagles to go to the, quote, worst team in the league, the Bears, that doesn't happen very often. I think a lot of it has to do is because he's from Chicago. I think that it's going to help boost us on defense overall. I know our defensive line is still kind of huge question marks, but we're going from one of the worst, if not probably the worst, linebacking core in all of football to, I think, honestly, one of the best. I think if Sanborn is our like worst starter, that's pretty damn good, and you can't really complain there. As for the saddest one, honestly, other than Monty, I can't think of anyone off the top of the head that really made me sad. I remember when Monty got traded, I was going to pick up pizza and started blasting some Adele. It was all in my feels for like the next like 5 hours. It was not a good time, but yeah, I don't really think of any of them were that sad other than Monty, to be honest.
DHC left.
I guess that's he technically he hasn't signed anywhere, so it's not, the dream's not over.
We gave away his number though.
Yeah, his number's gone.
Well, he'll get it back.
You'd have to fight the rookie that plays the exact same position and like is the same exact archetype as him for his number. Surely there's no connection there.
Bro, DH, I didn't even think about that one, but yeah.
I'm literally looking at like who laughed.
I was gonna say, truth be told. Oh, okay.
I mean, it's not like I'm like devastated about this, but N'Keal Harry, I kind of liked him as like a number 4, number 5. He was really good in the limited time we gave him to play, but we just never threw him the ball for some reason. It seems like every single time he's on the field, he made some type of like diving catch. So he's actually with the Cowboys, I think, on their practice squad, probably something like that. I know he signed.
I hope he's somewhere,
anywhere.
man. I love Harry.
Or he's
I know.
90 man, whatever it is now. So.
Me and David had mentioned on Twitter about wanting to bring him back as like our, wide receiver 6 or 5 or something like that. And I mean, I get it. I guess he didn't do great, but like you said, he just also didn't get a lot of like, targets. So, but yeah. That's a pretty solid answer.
It makes me sad that we retained Dante Pettis and didn't try to keep Harry. Like, I get Pettis has the return man upside, whatever. Velus Jones is supposed to do that. Make him earn it. Or Tyler Scott can return kicks, or Travis Homer or something. Just let me keep my glorious king, N'Keal Harry. I'm so sad he's gone.
I was so high in Harry when he came out of the draft. I'm like, the Patriots just got another dynasty having Harry. Obviously, that didn't work out in any shape or form, but his stock with me is just tanked. We got him for a 7th, so it wasn't like a huge deal for me, but
Yeah, I mean, he lost Jair Alexander. Like that was
also fair.
That was probably the best part of last season, to be honest. There no other highlights, from last year.
I mean, Claypool Moss and Sauce is pretty good.
Yeah,
Sauce is probably the best corner.
I mean, Trevor Siemian was a quarterback for that, so I couldn't really enjoy it as much as I could with Justin Fields throwing him the ball.
I'll be honest,
I saw people
Fields against Miami was just amazing.
Listen, if that would have been Fields throwing that football, that highlight would be all over Twitter for the next 6 years.
Right.
We would not shut up about that, but like you said, because it was Simeon, it's like, okay, cool.
I watched every game last season as much as it pained my soul, but I will be honest, I did not really watch the Jets game or the last Vikings game because I was depressed. We hadn't won in like 3 months, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm not watching Nathan Peterman and Tim Boyle out here against the Vikings. Like nothing. That's just pain.
Oh my
I'm not
God,
doing
I
it.
forgot about Tim Boyle.
He's one of our. I think we signed him, didn't we?
Yeah. No. We kept Peterman.
Yeah, Peterman left Peterman Fields.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how to say his name.
Baggett.
Yeah,
I think that's how you say it. Yeah, the kid from like a D2 school that people are high on that I've never watched throw football, so I don't know.
My favorite signing is another quarterback we picked up was PJ Walker.
I figured.
PJ, I've been watching since XFL. I love the guy, and I love that we can have a quarterback backing up field if he ever gets hurt, God forbid. But PJ Walker, we don't have to change our system at all. He's just an amazing quarterback. Honestly, he's a borderline starter in my mind. I know that might be like super hot take, but like I love my backup quarterbacks. I think Miller knows that for sure. But I think PJ Walker, if we end up in a situation where Fields goes down, we are in perfectly good hands.
I'm gonna go with Nate Davis for my favorite offensive signing, or signing in general, because I wanted help on the offensive line for Justin Fields. I thought that probably spelled the end of Cody Whitehair in Chicago, but clearly that's not what happened. We're still keeping Cody Whitehair to play center, which I think is okay. Like I'm still not the biggest fan of Cody Whitehair playing center because the last time he played center wasn't that good, but it is what it is. Nate Davis is still super young, ascending player like all the other players we signed this year. Really good run blocker, really good scheme fit too, and getting protection for Fields up front, like I'm never going to complain about that. We got him at a pretty reasonable price too. So I'm gonna go with Nate Davis.
Yeah, so Jarett stole my actual favorite signing. I love
sorry.
TJ Edwards, dude. He is like the most Chicago Bear, or like when he was playing in Philadelphia, I'd watch that man. I'd think this is the most Chicago Bears player that has never played for the Bears ever. He like call me crazy, and we can get into this a little bit more. We're just going position by position. This is our Lance Briggs. This is our guy who's going to do the dirty work and be really damn good, but is going to get outshined because there is a freak of nature playing alongside him, doing all the fun stuff and making all the fun plays. But if I had to pick somebody else, I'm going to go with Andrew Billings. First of all, you know me. I love my underrated positions that don't get as much love. I'm the fullback guy. I love me a nose tackle. And the big thing with him is he's going to be taking Justin Jones out of the nose tackle spot, which he was just abysmal in. That's like when you look at his PFF grade or any of the advanced analytics, and they look terrible. I know Packers fans are having a field day with it, given Justin Jones's recent comments. But it's all because we had him playing out of position. That Justin Jones is like a jack of all trades, master of none 3-tech, and he was playing in the nose, and that's just not going to work. So you go out and get Andrew Billings, who is actually one of the more solid nose tackles in the league. He's just a really good space eater and reads the run very well. And I think that's very, very good for this defense because, like I said, we were, I think, 32nd in the league in run defense EPA per play. So he's going to be keeping the guys behind him, these linebackers that we spent all this money on. He's going to make their jobs a lot easier. He's going to open up lanes for them. He's going to keep them clean. And our run defense is probably going to be pretty damn good this year, and he's going to be an underrated part of that. Our pass defense, different story. But I do think the Bears are going to be a great run team, and I think he's going to be a big driving force in that.
Yeah, I like the OTA videos of him because I did not truly comprehend how large that dude is. Because it has the videos of the D linemen, they're all big dudes and they're running the drills, and then all of a sudden there's just Billings who's double the size of them. It is insane how large he is.
Yeah, him and Dexter are both just massive human beings, and there's nothing more fun than watching a massive human being move other massive human beings, and we're gonna see a lot of that out of those two this year, hopefully.
I gotta hope.
Yeah. But touching on some of the other free agent signings, obviously Tremaine Edmonds is the big money one, and I still can't believe we walked away with Edmonds. I really did not think there was a chance in hell we'd sign him. I had myself talked into Bobby Okereke and Jack Sanborn being our two linebackers next year, and suddenly we're bringing in better Jack Sanborn and TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds, who is the perfect linebacker for this Matt Eberflus defense. Robert Tunyon's another really underrated move, going to be a great wing tight end for a lot of the 12 personnel stuff we see with Getsy. Obviously has that familiarity with Getsy and complements Cole Kmet very well. Deontay Foreman, I know he's kind of an afterthought now after we drafted Roschon Johnson, and Khalil Herbert is every Bears fan's favorite player. But, back half of the year last year looked absolutely fantastic. I saw somebody, I want to say it was Brett Coleman, say he was essentially indistinguishable from Nick Chubb in the back half of the year. Obviously, Chubb's a far better player, but production-wise, it was actually scary how close they were. And then obviously some of these depth guys on the defensive line, Rasheem Green is solid. DeMarcus Walker, he's probably actually going to start, but he was a good rotational guy for Tennessee. Dylan Cole, another Tennessee guy, is a good depth linebacker. All in all, I know the Bears didn't make the big splashes on the defensive line or at right tackle like a lot of fans wanted, but I really, really like what Ryan Poles did with his money. I think he did a fantastic job, and I don't think he's done. We look at this edge group, which we'll talk about here soon. It's bad, and there are some nice edge rushers you can get out there. So I do think by the time this video's up and has been able to sit for a bit and we've shit all over the edge rushers, there's going to be someone new going to come in, and all of a sudden it's going to be like, well, they're not that bad. Hopefully, at least. So yeah, all in all, like I said, really, really happy with what Poles did with his money. But moving on to something else I'm super happy Poles did, and that's the draft. And once again, just to kind of kick us off, who was everybody's favorite draft pick?
I think I got to go with Tarek Stevenson. We needed corner help badly. I love Kyler Gordon. I know that Jarett was just talking about him earlier, but we definitely needed the depth. We were terrible in the pass game, and having Tyreek Stevenson step up there, and I think he has the potential to be the best corner besides Christian Gonzalez in this class. Maybe Devon Witherspoon might edge him out there, but I think that top 3 corner in the class is definitely not a bad pick when you're in the second round, and just he's an amazing ball player. I think that he can take over and define this defense besides our big signings that we had in the free agency.
I mean, my favorite one I feel like is a little too obvious that it's not that fun to talk about, but it's Darnell Wright. I mean, we needed offensive line going into the draft. People talked about, they haven't got Bears fans specifically were complaining that we didn't sign Mike McGlinchey to $700 billion contracts or something like that. And we go in and we get our tackle, that we had been begging for. It kind of shored up the offensive line for the most part. I mean, I know there's still like a few question marks. It's not like top of the league or anything, but was a solid pick. Polls obviously love Darnell Wright. If you've seen the was it 1920 football drive or whatever, the little insider thing the Bears do. It's been brought up. Polls really, really like Darnell Wright, as you could see, trading down. He still got the guy that he really wanted in the draft to begin with. To not have the most boring answer possible, I'll go with a later round guy as well. Hopefully I don't curse him like I did with Treston Ebner last year. I really like Tyler Scott. Again, we already kind of touched base on him for the most part. He's basically a Mooney clone, which I think is really good because Fields loves Mooney, as you've seen from so far into his career. Mooney's been the one guy he's trusted the most on the entire offense. And to get someone who literally plays exactly like him for your young quarterback, I feel like that's just a win right there.
Yeah, I was gonna say Darnell Wright too, but I'm not gonna talk about him because he kind of my thunder, and that's also too boring of a thing to talk about, right? So I'm gonna go for a late round guy, and also the 4th round, Roshan Johnson out of Texas. I mean, I wanted Chase Brown kind of because I'm a big Illinois fan. I went to Illinois for college, so I was high on Chase Brown. But looking back, I think that Roshan actually fits the scheme a lot better, and he also fits what the Bears need a lot better because the Bears needed a pass protecting back to put on third down, right? Because that's the one thing people say about Khalil Herbert. He can pass protect for shit. He's a terrible pass protector. And I'm not sure that's going to improve when he's only 5'10", kind of smallish. So Roshan is a bigger type of back, a strong bruising type of back that still has somewhat breakaway ability. He's not going to be the fastest running back in the world. He's not going to break off, runs for 90 yards, but he could be a guy that gets 5, 6, 7-yard runs throughout the course of a game and just piles them up on top of each other and just wears out a defense like that. So I think Roshan, man, especially with how much people talk about him off the field, being a great leader, a great person in general too. I think that one of the Bears scouts was this is the best human being I've ever scouted. So whatever they base that off of, he's a really good guy, really good player. And I think it's going to be RB1 by week 4, week 5, just because of the ability to pass protect. I don't think Khalil Herbert or Deontay Foreman are that well-rounded, like Roshan is.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Roshan was actually my pick too, but I've got a backup, so we're good. No, you're good. I'm still going to touch on him because this is my show. But Roshan, I mean, he was one of my 5 favorite backs in the class. I was a lot higher on him than a lot of people were, despite him being backup at Texas. I mean, he was backing up probably the greatest running back prospect we've seen in our lifetime. So I think it's valid. And when you hear about how important he was to the team at Texas and how important he was to that locker room, it makes sense why he didn't transfer out and go to another school. Because to double down on Rishab's guy, Chase Brown, if you gave Roshan his volume and his touches, I think Roshan would have been a Heisman candidate. This dude is off the chain, and he's got that old school style to him where he's just going to say, fuck you, I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you, I'm going to go directly through you, and there's nothing you're going to do about it. And there's not a lot of guys in the league that are like that anymore, so I love seeing a guy like him be able to play as well as he does. And then, obviously, he blocks like a goddamn fullback, both in the pass game and in the run game at Texas. I don't think we're going to be seeing him taking Kari's job or anything. But I do think, if it were to come down to it, Roshan could absolutely fill in for him. So I absolutely love that pick. But the pick I'm going to go with, and I already know Grayson's going to find this very ironic, is Gervon Dexter, who on draft night, I was not very happy with. I'm not going to lie. I thought he was a lot of fun to watch, but his get off scared me shitless. Because we're looking at this dude who physically, he's DeForest Buckner. He's Chris Jones. He's this massive freak athlete that has no problem just moving people. But you look at this get off where he's standing straight up, kind of stands there for a minute, and then rushes and is still getting to the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
In the NFL, that's not going to fly. And then we start to hear these rumors flying around of, oh, he was asked to read and react. He wasn't there to attack, and the Bears are going to let him loose. I'm pumped. If that's the issue, if this is the story we're going with, and I'm going to believe it because I obviously have no reason to not to. He's confirmed it. Some of his former coaches have talked about it. Poles has talked about it. Eberflus has talked about it. If the issue with his get off is just it was how he was asked to play, then oh my God, Gervon Dexter can be one of the best interior defensive linemen in football, and Ryan Poles just drafted an absolute behemoth that is going to wreak havoc upon the NFC North for years if he can develop correctly, which with Matt Eberflus and this defensive staff, I have every ounce of faith in the world that they can do. This dude is awesome. He's going to be this, like I said, just this massive 3-tech that can really get down and dirty. He's going to be a great run defender day one, which is something I absolutely love. And you're going to kind of expect him to work on his pass rushing ability. I like his tool belt as it stands, but obviously there's room to grow. So despite my initial reaction to the pick, actually stepping back, looking at it objectively, thinking about what's kind of coming with it, I'm really excited. And I swear this isn't me talking myself into it and gaslighting myself into thinking we made a good pick. I'm really excited with what Dexter's going to bring to the table.
If you can unlearn the get off issue, I think that we are in good hands. Just it might be hard for someone to get off of that since he's a Florida for like 3-4 years, right? So
yeah, like I said, if it was taught, if this was something he was told to do and isn't just like an inherent habit, then I'm fully convinced our defensive staff can coach it out of him. And I don't think it's going to take that long. Now, I don't think he's going to be a world beater day one, obviously. It's going to take some time. He's a little rough around the edges otherwise, but I do really, really like what he brings to the table. And then the rest of these draft picks, if there's anyone wants to talk about in particular, by all means, go ahead. If not, I can just go ahead and run through them.
I don't want to add anyone else. I do want to give one more talking point about Roschon Johnson. Okay. So I think everyone here knows, because I've said it on Twitter like 100 times, he actually is from like around my hometown. He's like, there's like a bridge, one giant ass bridge between where our hometowns are. So it was in our school district, whatnot. We played them in football. When I played football back in Pee Wee, I'm pretty sure I played against him one time, which is pretty cool. But in high school, he was actually a quarterback, and he was a pretty damn good quarterback because, he got a scholarship to go play quarterback for UT. He just it was like a week or two before the season started. There was a bunch of injuries to running back, so he changed positions like right before the season, and he was pretty good at it. I think that there's going to be a couple of times throughout the season that we do some trick plays with him throwing the football, which I'm very excited for because, most teams do that with people who don't actually know how to throw. It just catches him off guard. He genuinely can throw a football, and I think that's going to be super cool to watch.
Listen, if we get a play where Roschon Johnson throws a touchdown to Cole Kmet, I will be the most insufferable human being on the planet.
Imagine it's Dakari.
Oh my! If it's Dakari, no one's going to want to ever talk to me again.
I will have to catch one. I want Fields to catch a touchdown pass.
Oh my God!
Even though I know they call him a running back and all of that, like catching a touchdown pass, that would be pretty cool.
Then they're going to start the Lamar narrative receiver, like when he was coming out of college.
Right.
They call him a running back, but what they don't understand is Fields can play any position. He just chooses to play quarterback. But yeah, I love Roschon. I'm so happy we got him. I will say, when he got drafted, I got spoiled because my dad was a running back in high school, and running backs like his thing. He loves running backs. So when the draft was going on, the only players he watched prior to the draft were running backs. And I say he was a running back. He was a fullback, but his offense, he was the primary ball carrier, blah, blah, blah. I just have to make that distinction because that's why I love fullbacks. But I showed him like 5 or 6 specific running backs, and it was Tyjae Spears, Bijan Robinson, Roschon Johnson, Chase Brown, Gibbs, and I think Devon A-Chain was the other one. Or no, it was Dwayne McBride was the other one. And he came away the most impressed with Roshan Johnson. And I remember on draft night, or when he got drafted, my dad came in, he gets the alerts on his phone, and I was watching an illegal stream on my laptop because I don't have cable. And I was waiting for the pick to be announced, and he came in and he said, "Hey, we drafted a running back. Is this Roshan Johnson dude any good?" And I said, "What the fuck? Are you kidding?" Like, I was so pumped. I love Roshan so much. Like, I usually am against buying rookie jerseys, but if Roshan becomes the starter by midseason, I will have his jersey by the end of the season. And that'll be the third player on this Bears team I've broken the rule for, the other two being Fields and my boy Komet. But the rest of the draft, we're looking at guys like Zach Pickens, who is just a really, really athletic defensive tackle. Dog shit against the run, but, he's a really good penetrator, really good pass rusher. Noah Sewell, who I'm kind of conflicted on. This is the one pick where I'm kind of like in the middle because he was great.
Is he a transition to edge though?
People have speculated that, but there's nothing like official, and I don't know if that's actually going to be the route.
I think if you transition to edge, we have like a really good if we sign another edge and we have Sewell moving over to edge, he might be the most dynamic player. I'm going to keep saying that because I love our the free agency and rookie class, especially on the defensive side, have been so like dynamic players, and that's what I love about Poles' reign right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has like the skill set to do it, but I don't know if they want to have a guy who spent all of last year trying to learn a new defense, learn a new position his first year in the league. And also he's like 240 some, like 6'2". He's not
253.
Oh, he's still. He'd have to put on a little bit of weight for me to want him to actually move to edge, but
I don't want to sound negative. I'm just being a realist here because like in years past, it was every time the draft happened, I'm like, oh, this 7th round, receiver like Daniel Braverman's going to be the best receiver in football, kind of a thing. I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, so realistically speaking, some of these guys, like there's a few who could be like really good. Then there's like the role players. Like I think Pickens, I think he's never going to be like a great player. I think he'll just be a solid role player.
Yeah.
So I don't want to sound super negative, but just from a realistic point, I don't see him being anything better than a role player. I see him more as like a special teams kind of a guy, not really getting a lot of playing time, which I know sounds super negative, which is not usually my thing, but that's just how I look at it.
I believe
I will say though, sorry to interrupt, but I will say like a year ago, he was actually going in the first round in many mock drafts, like 2022 or whatnot. Now, obviously the season's happened and he didn't play that good that year. So that's kind of why he fell in the draft. But I still feel like the upside is there. But like you guys are kind of saying, like he hasn't played to that level yet. And the Bears do have a very deep linebacking crew now where I don't see where he's going to start at this point. So maybe if injuries happen, he could, fill in. But other than that, probably just like a depth guy.
Because the big thing with Sewell to me is his skill set screams Sam linebacker. And not only do we already have Jack Sanborn starting there, but it's a position that in Matt Eberflus's defense really isn't on the field a whole lot because he likes to sit in nickel as his base defense. So Sewell is like a backup to a rotational player right now. And I don't know. Like he's got the upside. Don't get me wrong. The athletic tools are there. He's tough. He's a straight up thumper. I love this type of player, but his season last year really worries me. And the fact that he's not going to get a lot of playing time right away, I just don't know how to feel about him. I'm kind of with Jarett. I think he's just kind of a special teams guy, or if they want to have him add 15, 20 pounds, maybe he could play DN down the line, but I don't know. I get why they drafted him. I get the hype 2 years ago and just wanting value in the 4th round, but he's the one draft pick that like seems relevant, so to speak, not to disrespect the 3 guys I'm about to talk to, but like seems relevant that I'm not super excited about. I guess I shouldn't say that I guess I shouldn't say the next 3 guys because I like Terrell Smith. I kind of forgot about Terrell Smith for a second. He's just like in the same vein as these other corners we're getting where they're big, they're physical, they're athletic, and you're just kind of taking a flyer on him late in the draft. I think he can be, he has upside. He's kind of like a Kindle Vildor type pick where we take him late, kind of hope he can develop into like a 3rd or 4th corner. And then Kendall Williamson and Travis Bell, they're high character, smart guys taking a flyer in the 7th round. That's cool. Travis Bell was the first player ever drafted from Kennesaw State, and that's about the extent of what I know about him. So I'm not going to sit here and bullshit. But overall, the draft class, free agency, I think Ryan Poles absolutely killed the offseason. And that's not even talking about the biggest move of the offseason, which is obviously trading down from number 1, getting a slew of draft picks, and getting a true alpha number 1 receiver for Justin Fields and DJ Moore. So again, the next big question here is, a few months removed, how excited are we all for DJ Moore?
I bought a jersey. I wear it almost every day it gets washed. It's the first jersey I put on besides the Fields jersey. I love the DJ Moore move, and I can't wait to see the 1-2 punch with Fields and Moore all this season, and then show the Packers haters.
Fair. I feel like it's the off season. I feel like whenever moves happen, it's like the most exciting thing ever for a few days, and then we're like, oh well, we still have 7 months until there's any kind of football, so it dies off. So it kind of at first, loved it, super hyped, and after the draft, it kind of back of my mind just waiting till football season, and now that the off season, OTAs, mini camp, training camp coming up is happening. And the Bears never post a whole lot of tape from these practices, but those little snippets of DJ Moore plays have gotten me super excited, just from when the first trade happened. The one where it's in the middle of the end zone, threads the needle to DJ Moore is still one of my favorite plays I've seen from mini camp. And it's nice to have a good, a great wide receiver again. I love Mooney. Mooney's not a wide receiver 1. I know Bears fans, we tried talking ourselves into it, going into last year. We're like, yeah, I know Mooney could be a great number 1. He had a 1,000-yard season. Mooney's a good number 2, and there's not a problem with that. But you need that certified wide receiver 1, and Fields hasn't had one until now in DJ Moore. And it's also, he's kind of similar, or he's not similar to any players we've had for Fields. He's insane after the catch, which I feel like since the Matt Nagy era started, it's you catch the ball and then you're down and there's no rack. I'm pretty sure we've been last in, yards after the catch.
That's why we drafted Bayless Jones, and we all saw how that went.
We don't need to talk about Bayless Jones. We've been last in yards after the catch, since the Nagy era started up until now. And I feel like DJ Moore is going to do a great job of, improving us in that category. And I think that's going to help out Fields tremendously. And we haven't had Allen Robinson was good until he gave up, but it's been that long since we've had a certified elite wide. I don't know if I'd say elite, but a wide receiver 1.
Brandon Marshall.
I think we should all be excited.
I think Brandon Marshall's last time.
Robinson was good. I think Robinson was for sure wide receiver 1. It was just he had bad quarterback play, and then when he finally got Fields, he just was already checked out at that point and didn't really put in any effort, and it was very obvious.
Yeah, I'm super freaking excited. When that trade went down, I could not believe we actually got DJ Moore, right? Because I did a few mock trades on my YouTube channel, and none of them had us getting a player like DJ Moore, because I thought it would not make any sense for the Panthers to give up their only true star receiver, which Panthers fans now have talked themselves into the receiving core they have right now, which is not even close to being good in my opinion. They have some upside guys, but so I don't think it would make sense for the Panthers to trade DJ Moore. They did because they were that desperate for a quarterback, and good on Ryan Poles for getting the proper value for the number 1 overall pick. He got everything I wanted him to get and then some, getting a DJ Moore, getting a first-round pick next year, getting a second-round pick in 2025, getting a second-round pick this year too, which ended up being, Javon Dexter or the other second-round pick that we had. So really, really excited. And like you guys said, he fits Justin Fields' skill set super well. He's good after the catch. He's a guy that can separate. Justin Fields at Ohio State, he only had guys that could separate, and so far in the NFL, he's not really had guys that could do that. So, so far the connection has been going really well too. You've been seeing reports from the reporters that he's the one guy that Fields targets all the time, and that's good. He's actually having an early connection with this guy, and the chemistry seems to already be there. Even after a few weeks of practicing together. So really, really excited for sure.
Yeah, excitement isn't even the word at this point. There isn't a word to describe the feeling I feel when I wake up in the morning and remember Justin Fields now has DJ Moore to throw to. Because suddenly we're talking about him throwing to wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, practice squad guy, borderline NFL player, future XFL superstar, and then Bayless Jones. and now it's DJ Moore and the same cast, but all of a sudden it goes from a dog shit core to, okay, the Bears actually have something. And then the great thing about DJ Moore is it opens up everybody else. We've already talked about Darnell Mooney sliding into that wide receiver 2 role. And then all of a sudden, Cole Kmet, who was one of the more productive tight ends in the back half of the season last year, once the chemistry really built up with Fields, he's now the third guy you have to worry about. So that opens him up. And then Claypool, obviously, he becomes the third or fourth guy. And Robert Tunyon's in there. And Roshan Johnson coming out of the backfield. Like, all of a sudden, this Bears group of pass catchers is really, really respectable. And that's not even getting into the guys that'll rotate in off the bench. Like, it's so amazing that Justin Fields now has actual weapons. And obviously, people, like, another big thing with that is people point to his time to throw last year as a big reason of why Justin Fields sucks. He holds the ball too long, all this different stuff. And he does hold the ball a little long, I will admit. But a lot of that was a lack of confidence in his receivers, because you could tell if Mooney wasn't on the field and if Kmet wasn't getting separation, he didn't want to pull the trigger. He did not want to throw to St. Brown. He did not want to throw to Pettis. And honestly, can you fucking blame him? Like, who in their right mind wants to throw to any of these guys that he was throwing to last year? So now, all of a sudden, our young quarterback that we want to be the future in the face of this team has an improved offensive line, so he's not running for his life as soon as Sam Mustipher sits down when the ball is snapped. And he has actual receivers that he can trust. Like, I don't know if you guys pay attention to the Bears TikTok at all, but they post these videos where their social admin will put up a phone that's recording them coming out of practice, and there will be some prompt where they have to answer a question. And ever since Moore's gotten traded there, and they've done the couple in the offseason, Fields is walking off the field talking to DJ every single time. It's him, Moore, Mooney, and Claypool seem like they're their own little friend group, and that makes me so happy, because now Justin has at least 3 guys he really, really trusts to throw the football, and that's a big thing. That is so huge for a young quarterback's development and his confidence, and I'm just so excited. And honestly, it's just as big for DJ, because he's played his career with horrible quarterback play. He had our now backup quarterback PJ Walker, Sam Darnold, Teddy Bridgewater, and God knows who else throwing the ball in Carolina. And now he has, Baker Mayfield at one point. And he was still pretty damn productive. His touchdown numbers weren't up there because Carolina just wasn't scoring. But in terms of yards, and then obviously, like Jarett brought up, his ability after the catch, he's a consistent 1,000-yard guy. So now you've got a young quarterback with a fantastic arm that now has guys he can be confident in, and an elite receiver with a quarterback that can actually get him the football. These two are about to explode. And we saw this last year with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. We saw it in Buffalo with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. This is that. I know there's people trying to say that it isn't. It is. This is that just again. And I think this is like the new wave for a young quarterback as you go out, get him an established receiver somehow, and things will blow up for him. I am beyond excited for what is about to happen with this Bears offense, because, oh my God, the possibilities are endless. I could sit here and talk about it for hours. I really could. I got to cut myself off.
It's nice to be a Bears fan and have a fuck he's down there somewhere receiver.
Right.
So yeah. I'm more than pleased to have Moore come to Chicago, because Mooney was not the just fuck it, he's down there. But Moore's going to go up and grab that ball wherever it is. We're going to see a lot of like Hopkins type, jump balls from him. I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to point out, I feel like whenever DJ Moore was with Carolina, even with the bad, quarterback play, he was viewed as like a top 15, like that 15 to 12 range kind of receiver. And then now he's in Chicago. People are talking about him not being top 25. Yeah. And it's like, why? Because he went to a better team. Like, I don't know.
Right. He's in a better situation now with a quarterback that can throw the football, but because this quarterback has this narrative against him, all of a sudden he's not top 30. I don't like to play the victim. I really don't. But as time goes on, it really does seem like the media and the internet just hate Chicago. Oh, and I don't know. Maybe we should buy into that, be the real underdog, start wearing dog masks like Philly did when they won a Super Bowl. But
Well, it's not the same thing with Roquan. Roquan, I mean, he was viewed as like a good to great, linebacker in Chicago, and Bears fans are like, he should be like top 3, like he's insane, and they're like, nah, not really. Like day one, as he walks into the doors to like the Baltimore locker room, everyone's like, you know what? I think we were wrong. He's the best linebacker in football just because he's not on the Bears anymore, and it's just insane to me.
Or like Tevin Jenkins, like Rishab brought up earlier. PFF had him as a top 3, top 5 guard in football. I don't think I heard anyone outside of like Clay Harbor in the national media talk about Tevin Jenkins last year. Like
even PFF's list, like they ranked like the top 10, guards for next year. They didn't even have Tevin Jenkins in the top like 20, I think. Which by their own grading system, like he's a top 3 linebacker.
Right.
What are you saying? He's also only 24 years old. So I agree with you guys. I think the Bears do get more hate in the media than we deserve. Even though I know we've been a shit team for like a long, long time. I think it's more because Bears fans are so rabid online. Like we click on anything, we're going to defend our team. So like they want the clicks, they want the buzz, and we're giving it to them. I mean, because we're that dedicated to our team. So
yeah, for better or for worse, Bears fans are such a mixed bag. I'm glad I found 3 like level-headed guys to sit here and talk to, because this very easily could have turned into a war zone if I said the wrong thing at the wrong time. Because like I try to be realistic with this team, but our fan base doesn't take well to realistic sometimes. But just kind of to wrap things up, the last thing I want to do here, I've got a few more questions, but they'll kind of come with this, is just go through the roster, talk about the different position groups. I know we've already talked about, a handful of players, and if you hear any noise in the background, please excuse it. It's a loud and busy house. But just kind of starting things off with the quarterback position, and my first like big question here. What do you need to see from Fields to consider this season a success? Because obviously, I don't think Fields is going to come out and break any passing records this year. But what is league-wide passing record?
Okay.
I know where you're going with that, and I agree. I should have specified league-wide passing records. But what is it we need to see from Fields to consider this season a success and to be really, really excited heading into year 4?
I have one statement, and it's 4,000 yards. That's all I need to see from him is 4,000 yards. And to get that damn graphic off my damn screen, it's so fucking annoying to see. Here's all like the amount of 4,000 yard quarterbacks, and it just says NA for the Bears. I'm like, and everyone clowning us. I'm like, have you seen our history of quarterbacks? Because it's god awful. And Geek, who's in the North, has been like, no, the Vikings are worse. I'm like, you at least have a 4,000 yard quarterback. We were stuck with Jay Cutler for half a decade or more. And
Jay Cutler and Sid Luckman, those are the 2 we have to fall back on.
And randomly enough, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really have like a yards benchmark he has to get to per se, but it kind of goes in hand in what I need to see. So I know Bears fans don't like when you say anything negative about Fields, because that's our hero.
Listen, you've got the jersey behind you. You've got the jersey on your back.
I'm obviously a Fields guy.
I think you're good.
Also, this entire shelf right here, Fields cards. I'm a big Fields guy. Okay. My problem with Fields, and I think that's the one thing stopping him from taking that next step to franchise quarterback, or definitive franchise quarterback, I should say. He plays too much hero ball, which I know he kind of had to with how bad our roster is, but Fields does a bad job of taking what the defense gives him. He always wants that big play, that 80-yard run, that deep ball, which he can make that 80-yard play, and he has the accuracy on the deep ball to make those deep throws, because that's where that's probably his best trait, is his deep ball. But in the NFL, it's different than college. You can't always just go for that deep pass, that big play every single time. You have to take what the defense gives you. You got to go underneath. You got to do the check downs to the running backs. Like you can't rely on big plays to carry your entire offense. I think honestly, like the Bears were towards the top end of the league in like big plays, which is like plays over 20 yards, I think was the metric for it. And for a team that was bad record wise, bad points wise, and probably, bad yard wise, other than like running the ball, that it plays into is because they just went for big plays too much. I think we need to see Fields kind of grow into a smarter quarterback where he does take the check downs. He makes the smart play instead of the big play. And as long as he does that consistently, his yards will go up also, but that's not what I'm just looking for. But if he does that consistently, I think that would make me a lot more, secure in the fact that I think he'll be our franchise guy.
I totally agree. I mean, those are valid criticisms. Like, even if you are a big Fields fan, I think you have to admit that getting the ball out quicker, taking the dump off, doing the easy stuff, honestly, is what comes hardest to him right now, which is kind of wild to say because usually, the hard stuff is stuff that our quarterbacks cannot do. Like, our quarterbacks can never run for like a 90-yard touchdown or unload like a 50-yard bomb, super accurately to who are receivers going down the field. So I think that's a good point that he does have to be better and just playing quarterback and being more in tune with the system. And I think it's going to come naturally with him being in year 2 now of a system, which he's not been the same system for 2 consecutive years since 2020 was the last time during COVID, during Ohio State. So I think that being in the same system is going to be huge for him. And he just has to be more accurate with the football overall. But I think that those things are going to be coming because now we do have the proper structure around him on the offensive line and the receiving core that he can hopefully pass for at least, 3,500 plus yards. I think that 3,500 has to be achieved if he wants to be the franchise quarterback because, I know he runs with the football too, but like he can't be running for like 1K yards like every single year. Like I think that this year, if he runs for like maybe even like 700, 800 yards, I'd be okay with that. But like 1,000 plus, I'm kind of hoping he doesn't go for that number again because I want to see him being a pass first quarterback, which he was at Ohio State, keep in mind. So like I know, a lot of people are like Justin Fields, even in college, he ran a lot. That was not the case at all. Like at Ohio State, he was a pass first quarterback. So I think that statistically, I do want to see him reach at least a 3,500 yard mark. Like Grayson said, like 4K would be amazing. I think that's totally possible too, because he is, in my opinion, the most talented quarterback in Bears history. But we'll have to see. I mean, I'm pretty optimistic about him going forward.
Yeah, I want to say up front, I'm not a big stat guy. So for me, the growth I want to see from Fields isn't necessarily goodness, measured by a statistical achievement. 4,000 yards would be amazing. Don't get me wrong. Just to have somebody on those goddamn graphics so everybody will shut up. I agree 100%. And the other big thing for me, like statistically, is I'd like to see a 300-yard passing game. We have not seen that from Fields yet. Whereas from some of these elite quarterbacks like Rodgers, Mahomes, Burrow, whoever you want to say, that's kind of the norm. They're kind of exceeding 300 yards week in and week out. And granted, maybe it'll be an issue this year where we're just not throwing the ball enough to do that. Not to say that we're going to be back to where we were at the start of last year, where Fields was throwing 6 passes a game and we ran 40 times. We're still going to be a run-heavy offense. I think at least to start out, we're going to be running the ball a lot. So maybe that's an issue, and maybe in the back half of the season, Fields is finally putting up 30, maybe 40 attempts, and then he breaks that 300-yard mark. But that's kind of the big stat thing for me. But what I want to see the most from Fields is, number one, I want to see the connections grow and just him have confidence in those around him. And obviously, like we've all said 100 times now, he has no reason to not have confidence in the guys around him. Ryan Poles has done a great job with limited resources over the past 2 years, apart from the number 1 overall pick. And then I worded that poorly. Limited resources last year, and then the abundance of resources he had this year to really build around Fields, up front, receivers, all that good stuff we've been talking about. So if he can establish this confidence, get the ball out quicker, work on the fundamental aspects of the game, like Rishab said, then I'm going to be 100% happy with Fields. He could throw for just 3,000 yards or 2,800 yards or whatever. If he shows that growth, I'm defending this man with my life all of next offseason when people are calling him dog shit, because that's what I care about. I want to see on tape that he's getting the ball out quicker. He's trusting his guys. He's making the necessary plays. He's dumping it off when he has to. He's not playing hero ball. Like the whole hero ball thing, like Jarett said, very, very warranted last year. But to nerd out for a moment, Fields to me right now is kind of like Spider-Man, where the entirety of Spider-Man's start, he was alone. He was the guy. He was the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, where he didn't work well in groups, didn't work well with teams. And then as the years go on, he works with the Avengers and the Fantastic Four and goes into the Spider-Verse and works with all the other Spider-Men. And that's what we need Fields to do. We need Fields to get his Fantastic Four around him, and he's got it. He's definitely got it. I don't know who you want to say that fourth guy is. Throw whoever you want. But he's definitely got his big three. And now he needs to work well with these guys, work together with them, and just make something beautiful, because the sky is absolutely the limit with this guy and with the weapons around him. So, yeah, to summarize, it's not about the numbers for me. It's just about the growth. That's all I care about. I want him to grow again. And then when he's established, he's rooted into this offense. He's rooted in with these guys. Next year, he's fighting for MVP. Next year, he's blowing up and shocking the world and, having his crazy year. And hell, maybe this is a crazy take. Wouldn't be surprised if it happened this year. If things start off hot, and these connections get established quickly, and the Bears start winning football games, it would not shock me to see Fields in the MVP race. Hell, he got an MVP vote last year. Like, granted, a team staff member also got an MVP vote last year, and Fields was tied with him.
That was valid,
but it was valid, yeah. So I just think if you're looking at Justin Fields right now and you're thinking, yeah, he's done, there's nothing to get excited about here. There's nothing to think that he can be a franchise quarterback. If you think he absolutely sucks, you're out of your goddamn mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything he has shown us is positive. There's some work to be done. But like Rishab said, when you see him doing the Superman shit, despite not having some of the fundamentals down, it's, oh my God, I cannot explain, again, just how amazing it is to have a quarterback that can do some of the stuff.
I just want to remind everyone about the Miami game last year. Even though we lost that game, he literally took that game in his hands and just made that achievable. That's a team that realistically this season could be in the Super Bowl conversation. And if Tua didn't get hurt last season,
they beat Buffalo in the wild card round.
They at least beat Buffalo in the wild card. Believably beat Burrow and probably made the AFC Championship. Probably don't beat Mahomes. I'm also a big Dolphins guy, if you guys don't realize that. But I think that Fields is on the cusp of something. I think that's why I am so confident that he is going to be an MVP race this season. I know Miller's like, next season, but I believably think it's this season he takes off and becomes nuclear.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. We just need Fields to go nuclear. We've seen him do it in a game before multiple times. We just need it to be long-term. We need it to be a full season, and hell, maybe the next decade or so. But yeah, there's so many reasons to be excited about Justin Fields. And if you're hating on him, listen, you're not going to change your mind, because Fields haters are some of the most stubborn people in the world. But I'm sorry you hate fun at the end of the day. Like, this is arguably the most fun quarterback in football. It's like him, Lamar, Mahomes, and Herbert and Allen are like the big five of the most fun quarterbacks in football. So
yeah, I think my least favorite Fields criticism is like the whole he's so bad in clutch situations. I mean, there were some games where he played like the Green Bay one. I know it was I think it was St. Brown, where he can't. The route was sloppy, which led to an interception. Which I'm not gonna put that like. Maybe it wasn't
that was
the best
all
decision,
St. Brown,
but like
I'm putting that all on St. Brown.
Fair, makes my point even better. There was the Miami one where there's a missed defensive pass interference, or St. Brown once again just can't catch a football. I know me and Rishab were both at that Washington game where it was okay. It was a gross game. Thursday Night Football is always gross, but in that last drive, it basically was created by Fields. Obviously it was a run. That how it always is. Fields, ran basically all the way to the 5, and then I think it was Pettis got put in a headlock on the route, and they didn't call DPI on that one either. And then Mooney doesn't catch it cleanly. I feel like if you look at all of the games we lost in clutch situations, it's never his fault. And I don't want to just throw the blame on other people, but realistically, it has always been other people's faults. The first Vikings game, it was Amir Smith-Marset, didn't go out of bounds like a smart player. He fumbles the ball. St. Brown drops it 7 times. Velus Jones fumbled 3 punt returns, and 2 of those cost us games. I don't want to blame everyone but Fields, but realistically, it literally is everyone but Fields' problem.
We were the anti-Vikings
90% of the time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, literally, we were. There were a lot of games where we were in it till the very end because Fields put us in it until the very end. Mm-hmm. It's just the guys around him fell apart. The lights were too bright for them. Fields did everything he needed to put them in situations to succeed, and they just couldn't do it for him. And
I'm
like,
so mad about that Steelers game from 2021 too. I mean, that was the
oh
one.
my
That
God,
was the
yeah.
one game he should have had on Monday Night Football. Gets that comeback going. Tony Correnti, fuck him. He's obviously not in the NFL anymore, but he robbed Fields of his only chance to really get that victory. But
God.
I think many are going to be coming next.
And
I
Fields
that
had
memory
2
so
insane
bad.
throws that game too. There was the one in the
like
corner of
5.
the end zone to Mooney, and then the one down like the seams to Komet.
Komet.
Like
It was a
he
beautiful game from
played
Komet,
great,
too.
and the refs sold with. I still don't even know like why that was called. He threw his ass into Cassius Marsh and then called a penalty on him. Like it was the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah.
Cassius Marsh is a dope dude, by the way. If you ever see him on TikTok, he does like magic and Pokemon. He's awesome.
Really?
Yeah, he's dope as fuck.
That's awesome.
On his TikTok, he made a joke about hitting that referee with his car, which was also funny.
Oh man. And then what were the other? Fields gave Philly a run for their money. Literally ran all over Philly. Outperformed
Buffalo.
Hurts. Gave Buffalo a run for their money. Hit that sick throw to Velus Jones. Like, I just don't understand how people look at that and think, yeah, this guy sucks.
We probably would have been in Dallas. Like it would have been a lot better of a game if like things went his way. Like the deep pass to Velus Jones, which I don't want to hate on Velus Jones this entire time, but my God, he was bad at so many points. But that was like a perfect deep ball to Velus Jones. Beats the defense, which good on him. But then he just drops the pass, and things like that happened far too much, and it was painful to watch.
Although, just to make it look like we're not just excusing Fields from all fault, we do have to mention that Fields could have stopped the touchdown in that Cowboys game.
Okay, yeah. I don't know. Did he forget he was in the pros?
He forgot he could down Micah Parsons and jumped over him.
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, business decisions. Micah Parsons is a big man.
Okay, it's not a business decision if you just go, you're down.
Like if he would have hit him with his foot a little bit,
half the team could have. So.
He was on the ground. Fields was right there. That's the thing. No one else was there. It was just Justin.
I'm pushing my agenda for Justin.
Fair enough. I respect it.
The hype that Love's getting from the Packers, like from Packers fans, is the hype that Justin.
We don't need to talk about our self-proclaimed son.
Oh yeah, he is our son. Justin Fields' son at the end of the season.
I don't care if there was like context behind it. I'm ignoring the context, and he's our child.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fuck that. I'm pushing.
I don't even get the context. Like, why was he saying that in the first?
Apparently, a Bears fan.
Some fan asked him to wish Bears fans a happy Father's Day because he was doing something. I want to say, they had like some camp over in London, maybe.
It was in Paris.
Because I know Fields, Love, and another quarterback who we're not going to name because they all share the same agent are doing some football camp overseas.
Is it the guy I'm thinking about?
Yes.
Yeah, we're not. We're just gonna ignore the news of this from here on. I shouldn't have even brought him up.
He who shall not be named.
Yeah, but moving on, another position group that's definitely worth talking about. We've talked about a little bit, and then another big question here. What do we make of this running back room? Because obviously it's loaded. There is a lot of talent here, and I know Rishab's already kind of talked about who he thinks is going to end up taking over, but who do we think emerges as the best guy of this group? Because I feel like most of us are probably going to have the same answer, but it's still worth talking about because of all the talent here.
It's going to be Roshan, most definitely. I don't know if I was talking to you or Jared or both of you, but there's a world where Herbert is benched entirely or gets shipped off somewhere because he cannot block, and that's what Eberflus loves. He needs a guy in the backfield who can block. And I can honestly see Kari just sitting back there on some plays, just taking some snaps at running back, blocking at some of those times as the third running back, because I don't think Ebner's going anywhere with us.
Ebner's not going to make the
Ebner's not making the roster. I'm sorry. My boy, I'm sorry.
And I'm a big like running back by what's it called?
Committee.
Thank you. So having Foreman, Johnson, Herbert, last in game, all taking snaps is amazing to me, but I only think there's room for 3 people, and I don't think Herbert fits the mold right now. So either he's going to get benched entirely, work on his blocking in practice, or gets shipped off to somewhere who needs a running back, maybe Miami. We don't know. But yeah, I honestly think it's going to be Roshan by the end of week 6 at the latest, I think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Grayson, and Rishab also pointed out it's going to be like by week 4 or week 6 or whatnot. I think it could be even sooner than that. I think I'm a big Roshan guy. A lot of it has to do because you got to support like the hometown people, but like he's a great running back. And in one of the press conferences, I don't remember what the second one was, but Eberflus came out and he's like, "What I look for in a running back is whatever the other thing was." I'm sorry, I don't remember what it is, but then the second point was being able to pass block. Which, like Grayson said, Herbert is one of the worst like pass blocking running backs I've seen. Like it was atrocious, like most of the time. Also, why in fantasy I sway away from Herbert. I just don't like. I think he's a solid running back. Like he's like average to a little above average. He's pretty explosive, but he cannot block. That's just his big weakness. And I think in the offense we're gonna run, you need to be able to run block. And I think that he's going to like not really get much playing time. I think, Foreman's going to get some playing time and Roshan, they're going to be the ones to like split the actual like running carries. And then you have Homer as like our third down running back kind of guy out of the backfield to catch the passes. And that just leaves Herbert with, not really many snaps to get. Like Grayson said, I could see us shipping him off somewhere else if he even has value for like a late round pick. But overall, the group I really do like. Foreman kind of didn't really have a chance in the pros due to like injuries and whatnot to start his career. And then last year he finally got that chance after McCaffrey was traded from Carolina and he kind of, went off. He doesn't have a lot of wear and tear because of the lack of carries to start his career. So I'm a big fan of his. Roshan, like I said, I think he's going to be like I don't know about this year, but I think soon he'll be like in that top 10 conversation for running back. I'm that big of a fan of his. And then Homer, I know we signed him literally like an hour after Montgomery signed with Detroit. And I went on a tangent on Twitter about how I hate Homer and I don't want this as a prize to make up for Monty. And I kind of hated on him a little bit too much because I was in my feels. Realistically, I mean, he's a role player. He's a third down back. He's a solid, blocker. He's good at catching the ball out of the backfield. So I think overall, as a core group, they're going to be solid with or without Herbert.
Yeah, playing devil's advocate a little bit, I feel like we're underrating Herbert maybe just a little bit, right? Because last year I believe he led the NFL in yards per carry, right? And I know that's
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I know he didn't like have as many carries as like the other lead backs, so like that kind of plays into it. But he's still like a really damn good runner. I think the only thing, like you guys mentioned, he can't do is pass protect, which I heard he's doing like boxing with somebody in the offseason. I saw that I think it was like a Daniel Greenberg tweet. Tweeting about him doing offseason workouts and all. So if he does get better at pass protection, I still think there is a place for him on this team because he is that good of a runner. I mean, he's elusive, he's dynamic, he's shown the ability to, go off for those 60, 70-yard runs. Now, I don't think it's going to be a long-term player on this team because, one, he was a Ryan Pace guy, which, so far Ryan Poles has shown the willingness to move off of Ryan Pace guys. So that plays into it. We already have 2 other running backs too. And, maybe there's not going to be a place for him long-term on this team, but I still think he is going to factor into the rotation at least a little bit next season. Maybe not like the lead back, but maybe be like a number 2 or a number 3 because we have to remember like Deontay Foreman also has injury issues, right? Like last year was the only season he was like fully healthy. So I think Herbert still is like number 2 for me as of now, but definitely Roshan number 1. And we also got Justin Fields, who I know people say he's a running back, but I don't want to play into that obviously, but he's the best runner at the quarterback spot in the NFL, which is huge for your offense. And it's really cool to have. I mean, it's not something that should be shamed, from other fan bases. So
I do love Herbert. I just want to say that I do like him. I like guys who can block.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, as somebody who was fighting like for his life last year for David Montgomery over Khalil Herbert, and I still swear by the way, I still believe that all around Montgomery is a better back than Herbert. Roshan Johnson is the clear answer to me as like who can be the best back in this committee, who should be the number 1 back in this committee, because he was like the ideal David Montgomery replacement. Now, if you wanted a Montgomery clone, Zach Charbonnet was probably your guy, even though I know he went before us. It's just that was the closest 1-to-1 comparison. But if you want an upgrade, if you want a guy that does everything David Montgomery does, but better, Roshan Johnson is your guy. Better blocker, better runner between the tackles, stronger, I would say quicker. I don't know if the 40 times and whatnot back that up, but we all know 40 times aren't 100% accurate. Like, he is a better David Montgomery. And the Bears kind of changed their run game last year, not only to benefit Fields, but also to benefit David Montgomery. Because, going into the league, I remember when we were doing this video last year, I was preaching up and down, Getsy, wide zone offense, Shanahan style, all that good stuff. That's not what happened. This team was one of the most heavy inside zone teams rather than outside zone teams in the league. 31% of the plays from scrimmage, run plays from scrimmage, were inside zone. That was 6th in the league. 21% were outside zone, which is 17th in the league. And then obviously you also mix in power plays, counter plays, all that stuff. You're in the low 20s there. So the go-to run for the Chicago Bears is an inside zone play. As much as I love Khalil Herbert, this is Roschon Johnson, like bread and butter. You put that man between the tackles, and like Rishab said earlier on, he's going to just pick up 5, 6, 7 yards consistently and wear down the defense. And I think Herbert absolutely has a spot on this team. Like, I get what you guys are saying with maybe you trade him away because of the pass blocking thing. I think considering you have at least 2 backs that can pass block, you can get away with Herbert not being great at it. And if he's working on it, maybe he improves. Maybe he's looking better at it. Because him as the lightning to Roschon's thunder, oh my God. This is like, I remember we were all excited about Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen being thunder and lightning. This is that on steroids. Like, no disrespect to Tariq Cohen, no disrespect to Jordan Howard. They're Bears legends. But, okay, Grayson popped out. We got to put him back in. Roschon is a better pure runner and better all-around player than Jordan Howard ever was. And Khalil Herbert, kind of same thing with Tariq Cohen. Well, not better all around because Cohen's a better pass catcher. But as a runner, Herbert is one of the best pure runners of the football in football. So I think you're looking at quietly one of the best running back groups in football. And then obviously you throw Fields into that. And there's no reason this shouldn't be a top 2, top 3 rushing team in the league. So again, just the excitement for this group is not describable with the human tongue. I'm so pumped for what is coming with this group. And then obviously moving on from there, you look at the wide receivers. We've talked a ton about them. I don't know if anyone wants to sing their praises for Dante Pettis, Equinemius St. Brown, Velus Jones Jr., Nasimba Webster, Joe Reed, Thyrick Pitts, or anyone like that. But it's a good group.
St. Brown as a number 5 option isn't a bad deal at all. He cost us games, but that's also because he was number 2 receiver,
number 1 at some point when he was hurt.
So having Brown as like a deep backup option when you need to take Mooney out or take more out when they're really tired is amazing. Hopefully he won't get screwed like he did in the Dolphins game, or just screw us in general at the end of the games. But
plus he's a great run blocker.
Yeah,
that's the other big thing. That's why we brought him in to begin with, why we kept him around. He's one of the best run blocking receivers in football.
If he can be 1% of his brother, we are in good shape.
Right. And yeah, lumping that in with the tight end room, I want to ask you guys this. I know Jarrett's going to agree with me because me and him are both Cole Kmet's strongest soldiers, his biggest fans. Do we think after the season Cole Kmet had last year, and kind of where the tight end position is in football, where you have like 5 or 6 guys that are very clearly above the rest, and then everyone else is kind of fighting for 7th. It's crazy to say that Cole Kmet's one of the 10 best tight ends in football.
No, he easily is. I mean, the facts prove that. Like, he was top, wasn't he like top 3 in total touchdowns?
Something along those lines. Yeah, he's in the top 5 at the very least.
Yeah, and like last year, the Bears did not pass the football that much. So like playing in a very low passing volume offense, he still produced as a pass catcher. I think it's very, very, impressive. So I was really happy about Cole Kmet last season. I think that I was kind of hesitant on crowning him before last year because obviously we didn't see that much out of him the first 2 years in Chicago. But I think last year he proved he is a long-term tight end in Chicago, and I'll be very surprised if he doesn't get extended before the season starts. I think that's coming in the next, next few weeks and few months. So
100%. I agree 100%.
Kmet he's going to enter the conversation with Andrews, Kelsey, Kittle. He's going to, with Fields and his upgrade, and plus they don't have to focus on him anymore with Moore and Moody coming back from injury and Claypool hopefully being somewhat of a distraction. Kmet's going to take a big step here, and he's going to get at least a Pro Bowl nod. And Chicago gets like we've talked about in the past, the press hates Chicago. So maybe not everyone will say Komet's in that conversation with Kelsey and everything like that, especially as they get older. And Komet's just entering his prime. I think he's like, what, 26 right now? So like 26, 27 is when players usually enter the prime, and Fields isn't even there either. So more praise to him. But Cole Kmet is going to enter that conversation in my mind. I'm super hyped for this team. If you haven't, I'm overestimating right now for the whole team. I can already hear Geek just chiming in my ear next week.
Yeah, Cole Kmet to me, I think I don't think he's on that tier of like the top guys like, you know, Kelsey, Andrews, Kittle. You want to throw in Hawkinson or Goddard as well. But I think he's in that like, you know, 7 to 10 range where he's like right outside of that tier, but he's not quite there. But also I want to point out, you know, Kmet hasn't been in the league super long, and you know, I'm a tight end guy. This you call me biased, whatever, but tight end's one of the hardest positions to transition to. As you know, like has a lot to do with why like, you know, the tight end receiving yards for a rookie record like wasn't that high. It's because it takes a while.
Ours. It's still Ditka's, baby.
It's hard to get
yes.
to. Okay.
Yes, it is.
And
I love reminding people of that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jarett. I just like reminding people that Mike Ditka set that record in the 60s and still holds it.
That tells you how like hard it is. It's known to be a hard position to transition to, because it's like a receiver, you know, you have to learn all of the route tree, but then also you have to learn about all the blocking schemes. It's a lot. It's a lot of information you have to take in. A lot of tight ends don't transition super fast, and it takes them a few years in the league to get to that point to where they're like, you know, a consistent like receiving threat or blocking threat. And a lot of the thing with a lot of people a big problem a lot of people have with Kmet is, I mean, his receiving yards aren't that like, you know, high, but it's also we weren't a big passing team last year. Also, Kmet is an elite like blocker. People just gloss over that when ranking tight ends. It's, who has the most yards and touchdowns? They're the best tight end. That's how it is. I don't agree. I think that blocking for a tight end is super important. That's why I like Pitts, but my problem with Pitts, him and Waller both are like receivers just acting like they're tight ends, and it's just not how it is. Kmet is a true tight end who knows how to block, and I think that if you're actually, you know, rating tight ends from the position as a whole, Kmet is up there. And I mean, I don't know if I would say he's going to get into that like elite tier with the Kelseys and you know, Kittles and whatnot, but I think that he'll be right outside of that tier, and there's not a problem with that.
Yeah, I agree with Jarett on that. As much as I love Kmet, I mean, the man is my favorite player in football. I just don't think he has the tools to get up there with Kelsey or Pitts or anything like that. Like, we know Kmet's big issue throughout his entire career has been creating separation because he's not the fastest or twitchiest guy in the world. Granted, he's decided to just make up for that by saying, fuck you, I'm stronger than you, and just completely bodying people. And I think that's going to continue. And then also he's shown that he can make circus catches like that catch against Atlanta that gets no airtime, but was absolutely insane, especially for a big physical bruiser of a tight end. You don't see tight ends like Kmet catch the ball like that. That's not a thing. So you factor in the fact that he's such a great blocker. He's so reliable. I don't know have the numbers in front of me, but I'm sure his drop percentage last year was greatly improved from his first 2 years because he did have an issue with his hands. And, you know, we sung our praises for Getsy on this last year, talking about how great he is with teaching guys how to not suffer from concentration drops with the whole Devontae Adams thing. He played a big part in that. And Mooney and Kmet both were more consistent when the ball hit them in the hands. So if Kmet continues to grow, I think he's going to consistently be in that second, or I guess third tier of tight end, because Kelsey's kind of in his own tier. And then it's the next couple guys, and then
Kelsey
that third
block.
tier. Kelsey doesn't block, but he's Kelsey. Like,
George Kittle blocks more than he does.
That's my one thing. I know I talked about how like there's more to playing tight end than just receiving, but I feel like
there's
Kelsey
always
is
an
just that
exception
much
to the
better
rule,
that it's
and
like
it's
hard
Kelsey.
not to. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I love where Kmet's trending. I agree with Rishab 100% that he's going to get a contract very, very soon. When you hear Ryan Poles or Matt Eberflus talk about the guy, they have nothing but wonderful, wonderful things to say. He's very clearly like the ideal type of guy for what Eberflus is doing culture-wise, because he doesn't run his mouth, he puts his head down, he does his work, and he doesn't expect praise for it. It's just his job. And I think he's a fantastic security blanket, so to speak, for Fields going forward. And then continuing on, next position's fullback. We don't have to sit here and talk about it because I'm sure
The best-
we could go on for hours and hours and
Kari.
hours.
The best
But,
re-signing
yeah.
in the league, honestly.
Yeah, 2-year deal for my boy Kari, top 5 fullback. Didn't get a whole lot of playing time last year because they made that kind of switch away from a zone running scheme like they were planning on doing. But now that when he's on the field, he's not just going to have to block to make up for the offensive line in front of him sucking. I'm sure Kari's going to get the ball a little bit, and we've seen that's kind of his thing. He's a former running back, like he played halfback at Vanderbilt. He's very, very quick by fullback standards, good hands, can run routes, all that good kind of stuff. So who knows? Maybe he could get some third down back snaps, some scat back snaps, whatever you want to call them, kind of like Grayson said, or, you throw off the defense a bit, throw it to Kari. They don't know what's going on, and he's 15 yards down the field by the time they realize the fullback. Listen, we do not need to get me that excited. If it were up to me, Kari would play every position and simply win. But top 5 fullback in the league, fantastic blocker, hard worker. That block against the Patriots on the goal line where he kept blocking after the touchdown was already scored and buried a dude was probably my favorite play of all of last year. I just love Kari. I'm so glad we have him. I'm so glad he's sticking around.
Over the 3v1 block? I don't know what game it was, but
that was also really good, but it was the Patriots game. It was like a 1-yard touchdown. I want to say Montgomery ran it in.
Okay.
And Kari made contact with, I think, a linebacker and then just drilled him into the ground. I'll have to send you the clip after we're done recording this. It was a thing of beauty. And then the offensive line, considering everybody's kind of new or had a really good year last year, we've kind of talked about everything. I feel like we haven't mentioned enough Sam Mustipher's gone. We're free.
Thank God.
Yeah, and now we have Cody Whitehair, who at the very least knows how to play football, so it can't possibly be worse.
We could pay Dalton Risner, or Reisner, whatever you want to call him.
I don't know. I'm just happy it's not Mustipher. That's all I care about. Shout out Sam Mustipher's dad for being a creep on Twitter.
Like, positive we have of Mustipher though is it had some great moments to look back on and laugh. I don't know if you've seen the it's a Twitter clip where I think it was the Patriots game where it's like a screenplay.
He's turned around
and the guy's like screaming like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" That's like the funniest video ever, and every time I see it, it makes me die laughing.
Dude,
ESPN gave him a top 10 pass block win rate each of the last 2 years, which is
I don't
pass block win rate is not a stat that
I saw
matters, and that is
Twitter,
my evidence for it.
Someone on Twitter said if you don't make contact for a block, it doesn't count as a lost block, and that's why his rating is so high.
Because what he does is he stands there and then turns around and he's like, "Hey Justin, what do I do?" And Justin's like, "I'm trying to throw the fucking ball. What do you want from me?"
You guys remember the one time he snapped the ball off of his nuts? I think it was the Lions game last year. He just snaps it straight back, hits his nuts. It's like a fumble too, and Fields has to jump on the ball. Obviously.
Yeah. Oh my god.
There's not many times you see a professional athlete be as bad at their job as Sam Mustipher was at his.
And he went to Baltimore.
Still getting paid. Yeah. The Baltimore Ravens are giving him money.
He's not starting because Linderbaum.
No. He probably won't make the final 53. He's just there for camp, but he's still getting money from them.
I don't want to be like that person who's like, this guy doesn't deserve his job. Sam Mustipher needs to go to McDonald's.
No, listen, he can be an average XFL center.
Fair enough.
That's what he needs
center
to
in
do.
the XFL.
Yeah. I don't want to be rude because he is a human being with a life. And I'm sure Sam Mustipher off the field is a wonderful person, assuming he's nothing like his father. But dear God, he is the worst football player I have ever seen. And I suffered through 4 years of Mitchell David Trubisky playing the quarterback position.
Mitch wasn't that bad.
Yes, he was.
Listen,
I've seen more horrible play from it.
I was as big of a Mitch fan as most people, and me and my uncle, he was a realist, and he used to talk like, "Oh, Mitch is an awful quarterback. We need to get rid of him." And I was like, "Nah, Mitch can be a top 10 guy. He's our quarterback." And I talked myself into believing in him. And then now that I've matured in my football knowledge and understanding of the game, I'm like, I don't know why I did that to myself. I defended that man like it was life or death. And now looking back on it, I'm like, I mean, he had some flash plays, but you had to dumb down the offense so much to make him even
Yeah.
competent of a quarterback, and it was not pretty. And I'm so glad we had a quarterback.
I made multiple hype videos for the guy. I also made hype videos for
He's
Chase
got good
Daniel, so
highlights.
I can't really talk there, but I just talk myself into him because obviously, like you guys, like I'm a diehard Bears fan, so like I'm hella biased all the time. Like I try to hide my bias sometimes, but I'm definitely biased. I talked myself into Trubisky in 2018, 2019. I think like week 5 or whatever was like the Saints game where he just completely, wet the bed. After that game, I kind of like jumped off the hype train. I was like, yeah, this guy probably sucks. But
I was on the train until like the last 3 weeks of his final season, just because I wanted him to work out so bad. I love Trubisky, like as a person, watching him off the field. He seems like such a good guy. But man, he's not good.
I mean, even when we drafted him, I did not want him at all. I was watching the draft with my mom, and I remember we drafted him, and I was like, going into that draft, I mean, maybe going for a quarterback was smart. That was forever
I wanted
ago.
Jamal Adams in that draft.
I wanted Jamal Adams more than anyone. Like, that was my favorite player. And then I also really liked, I talked myself into Jonathan Allen a lot. But those were like the 2 guys I really, really wanted. And then we get Mitchell Trubisky, and I'm like, I don't even know who this guy is. I don't want him at all. And then like, I remember as the draft like went along, they were like, oh, the Bears may be trading Trubisky to like the Browns or something, and like in a package deal. I don't know if you remember that happening, but it was like right after we drafted him, there was talks of us trading him. And I was like, well, now that other people want him, I don't want to trade him. He's our guy. And then, we saw what happened with Mitch's career in Chicago, and it was ups and downs, mostly downs, a lot of downs, but
he's one of 2 Steelers I support, so
Yeah, I had myself talked into Jamal Adams in the top 5, and then Brad Kaya in like the 5th round. If anyone remembers who Brad Kaya was,
the Miami quarterback.
Yeah,
I just remember people like were like hyping him up, and I'm like, I have no idea, and I don't even know if like he got drafted by Carolina. I think. I want to say it was Carolina.
I don't know where he got drafted. I know he played with Detroit at one point.
Maybe it was Detroit. I want to say he got drafted by Carolina and then bounced around, and now he's just like, I don't know. Somewhere.
Because like I always do that. Like when we drafted Fields, I had myself talked into Tevin Jenkins at 20, which obviously worked out. And then the quarterback the Vikings ended up drafting. I can't remember his name for the life of me. Kellen Mond, yeah.
A&M legend.
Yeah, that was my dream for that year. And then we got Fields and Jenkins, and I was like, wait a minute, Ryan Pace kind of good at this? And then Ryan Pace did a Ryan Pace.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a hot take. I don't think he was not a good GM, but like if you break it into different parts, him in the draft wasn't that bad. It was
past round 3.
Okay, yes.
In the first 3 rounds.
Pace's biggest problem was that he didn't respect the draft, and he's like, no, he took the Rams logic of fuck them picks, but didn't trade it for like big stars. It was just kind of like random guys here and there. So we had no depth,
and then he'd overpay people that were like 38.
Yeah. We had good starters, but if one player got hurt, then our entire team went from good starter to worst starter in the entire league. And I think that was his biggest problem. Obviously that doesn't work out, and it's rightfully so he got fired, but like if you break it into certain parts, he's not that bad.
Well, thankfully we are free from his clutches. Yeah,
like 2020 2021 were like those were like really good Bears drafts if you look back and like look at those draft class. So he got better as time went on, but by then it was too late.
Yeah.
He got his field, so I'm not going to hate on him too much.
Yeah, like
he gave us
a
present.
He gave us a good farewell present. Yeah.
Parting gift.
Yeah, parting gift. That's the word. Yeah.
Did you guys suffer through Sexy Rexy in Orden, or are you guys start watching after that?
I was kind of young. Yeah. Still kind of.
I was young, but like
Cutler was my first quarterback.
See, I suffered through Sexy Rexy and Orden as my first few years as a Bears fan. So seeing Mitch is just a ginormous jump up in quality of starter. So.
See, I was like a fake Bears fan in my childhood. Like I was a Bears fan because it was like the family thing. But like when I first started watching football, I was a Jaguars fan originally because I was born in Florida. And I just like, hey, Jaguars, that's cool. Starts with J. So does Jarett. That sounds good to me. And then once I started like getting into more and more games, I was a Cardinals fan because I loved Kurt Warner and Larry Fitzgerald, and they really got me like excited for football. And then after that, I went to the Bears because it was like a family thing, and it was kind of like I was raised into it. And so the first one like quarterback I like legitimately watched and supported like through and through was Cutler, which I mean, he wasn't bad. He was just like a
He
mediocre
was
kind of guy.
inconsistent.
Didn't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah, see, I might be the only kid ever that kind of tuned out when the offense was on the field, and then when the defense came on the field, my eyes were glued to the screen. Brian Urlacher is why I love football, despite, his recent off-the-field shit. He's still probably my favorite player ever deep down, because, oh my God, watching that man play football was beautiful. And I'm talking like washed-up Brian Urlacher in 2012, where he was like jogging out there, but still doing something. My favorite play of all time to this day is when he had the pick six against the Titans his last year, and he hurdled somebody right before, and by the time he got to the end zone, he looked like he was about to curl over and die. Like,
You're not alone.
Urlacher is like the one person I have multiple jerseys of, because I don't normally buy jerseys of players I already have jerseys of, but I have 4 Urlacher jerseys, all from like while I was growing up. I'm just like, yeah, I want another one, and so I have like an orange one, blue, white, and then I think I have the one of the alternates. I don't remember.
I have the white alternate, the throwback from the 30s or whatever it is.
I had the Trubisky. You're talking about the orange one, or are you talking about
the white one with the stripes?
I have a
shoulders.
Yeah.
I have a Keem Hicks for that one. I love that jersey so much.
I got a Mac one for that one, but I think it's.
We all have one of those.
Yeah. No, we still got love for Mac. We can.
I love Mac. I was actually sad when we let him go. Like
I was, but it was time.
Yeah, like whenever the trade happened, it was right before I was doing a podcast with like my podcast group, and like we were literally like 5 minutes away from starting, and a notification popped up on my phone, and in that podcast, if I went back and looked at it, I was mad. Like it was kind of like one of those like initial reactions. It was kind of like admitting that the team, like the like that 2018 era team was like coming to an end. Like we're rebuilding. We're not going to be a contender anymore. So my initial reaction was just like pure anger. And so I ranted about how much I hated the move. And then like after the podcast ended, I'm like, you know what? Like legitimately, it was a smart move. It makes a lot of sense. Can't hate it. But that's on the internet forever, is that I hated the move originally.
Yeah.
I'm just sad we couldn't give him a depoy again. He deserved a depoy, at least in, I think, 2018.
Yeah, his first year in Chicago, he should have won it. He was insane.
That first game against Green Bay was like the most insane defensive game.
He was on restricted snaps too in that game. He was super
because he
restricted
didn't know the playbook yet.
Yeah.
So I can't believe we lost that game though. Like that's
because
I was in the Buffalo Wild Wings.
Rodgers on fucking painkillers.
Yeah,
man.
He took so much painkillers.
That was my first year in college, and so I was like I didn't have cable at my apartment, so me and my buddy went to Buffalo Wild Wings, and there was like a family of Packers fans like at the table next to us, and I was like, I wasn't talking shit to them per se, but I was like yelling, like talking my shit, like I was so hyped. And then after halftime, when everything went downhill, and I was yelling profanities in the middle of this Buffalo Wild Wings, like I probably should have been kicked out. I was very angry at that moment.
I almost got fired that first game because I worked at a grocery store that had like a barn in the middle of it. It's weird, but they have a TV right above, and I did not take my eyes off that goddamn screen that whole game. I swear I could have gotten super fired that night. So like, Mac was a dream in Chicago. Wish he got the depoy.
I love how this all spawned from me saying Sam Mustafer's gone. That's beautiful.
I can rant Bears for like hours
on it.
But because we're hitting like an hour 50, we got to rope it back in. We got to finish up here. The offensive line, like I said, we've pretty much touched on everybody. The only guy that didn't get like as much airtime is Cody Whitehair, and Cody's been here forever. We know what he brings to the table. He's moving back to center. Great. Better than Mustafer. That's all that matters at the end of the day. So offense covered. Good. We love it. Things are looking up finally. Yeah. And then we get to the defense, and it's looking up except for the front four, because this group is rough, especially the edge rushers. I don't know. Is anyone here like a straight up Trevis Gibson stan? I know some of those are out there. Of course you are, Grace.
I kind of was going into last season. Like it wasn't like I thought he was going to be like a superstar or anything, but going into last season, I had kind of high hopes. I'm like, I think he'll be like a solid defensive end, gets you like around like 8 to 10 sacks, that kind of a thing. And I think after last season, I had so much disappointment in him that he literally did nothing, that I'm like, I think he's a rotational piece if at best. Like he doesn't have that dog in him, I guess.
Yeah, the big thing with Gibson is he's not a good run defender. Like as a pass rusher, if he's your third, fourth guy, you're feeling pretty good about it. He's a good rotational guy, and that's what happened the year before when that hype was there. Was he came in for Mac, and had what, like 7 sacks, I think, which would have been a godsend on this team considering we had what, our leader had 4 and it was Brisker.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he was another guy that, when he was asked to step up, the lights were a little too bright and didn't quite get there. But Grayson, go ahead. I didn't mean to jump you up, but go ahead and say your piece.
He has so much potential and talent on his side that if he had some support on the other end, which we didn't have because we traded Quinn away and everything like that, that I honestly think that he's not going to be a star. He's not going to be like the biggest guy or like the strongest guy on the field or anything like that, but he can produce to a reasonable amount. It's never going to blow your mind, but I like the dude. I like those guys who can just work their ass off. Maybe not like get those like $20 million paychecks, but they can come in and day out, give you results, and contribute enough.
I was a big Dominique Robinson fan after the first game, and then he didn't get a sack for the rest of the season. So I still think there's something in Dominique Robinson because he was super raw coming out of college. Like, he wasn't supposed to start last year. He only started because, we traded away Robert Quinn and we had like nobody else there. So there's still something in Dominique Robinson. We'll see if he can put it all together. I don't think he's going to be a starter or like a good starter right now because he's still probably, maybe a year or two away from being learning the position. So, but I still think we should maybe be a little bit hopeful for him to see something more out of him because he did do well against Trent Williams last year. Like, he was the only guy that has Trent Williams. So he does have some potential, I would say.
The only concern for me with Robinson is I believe he's a little on the older side. I think he's already like 25, 20.
I think
he's 27.
I think he's trained 27 this year. Let me look.
No shot. He's that old.
Okay, if he's that old, then I just lost all hype for him.
Okay, he's only 24. He was born in 98.
That's not bad, then.
Why
so
do you think
he'll be 25 next month?
I think it's for the Madden League, and when I had him in Miami, he was like 27 at that point.
He'll be 25 July 2nd. So he'll be 25 heading into year 2, which isn't ideal, obviously. But
I don't know. I think he has a lot of potential because, I think Rishab kind of touched on it. He hasn't really played the position for that long. He was I think he played 2 other positions. It was like receiver, and I think he played something else, and then he was defensive end or something like that.
He's receiver.
So,
in college at University of Miami of Ohio, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that where he went? Yeah.
But he apparently did really well at the Senior Bowl, and I think his title's like director of Senior Bowl. It's Jim Nagy.
Yeah,
I've seen he had posted on Twitter something about how he thought the Bears got the steal of the draft. Like, he is super raw, and like Rishab mentioned, he's probably like a year or 2 away from being like a consistent starter. But he has all of the traits to be a solid edge rusher. He just kind of has to put everything together, which is going to take time. And I think when we drafted him, it was as a, raw potential prospect that's going to take a few years. So I think, when we have this show again next year or the year after, we'll be talking about how, Robinson is going to be a solid player going into the next year. I think as of now, though, he's just going to be a rotational guy. Still has to develop quite a bit before he really makes a difference for the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of like it for the defensive ends. Obviously, we brought in DeMarcus Walker and Rasheem Green. I almost forgot about them. Walker's fun. He was a good rotational guy for Tennessee. Maybe there's something there now that he's going to get a chance. And then Rasheem Green is just kind of a poor man's DeMarcus Walker. So the depth works there.
Didn't Walker have 5 sacks last season?
Yeah, he would have led our team in sacks. Yeah, he had 5 or 6.
I'm happy with it. I'm also waiting on polls to sign Ngakoue because it's happening in time now. I'm
Ngakoue, Clowney, who the fuck ever. Anybody with the pulse.
Both of them would work perfectly fine.
Well, because they would actually pair together very well.
Clowney is good against the run, not that great of a pass rusher. And Ngakoue is great against the pass, but not good against the run. Just like it's a good match, and it makes sense.
You probably can get him for like $18 million together.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a 1-year deal, it doesn't matter. We have the cap space.
The only thing that concerns me with our edge rushers right now is if you go back and look at Indianapolis's defense when Eberflus was there, that was not a position they really cared about. They were just kind of filling it with whoever, Ngakoue included, drafted a couple guys in like the 2nd, 3rd round, and they just kind of did their job, and that was it. Because the Colts were never a team that were great in sacks, but they did get a lot of pressure. They were really good against the run, and they forced a lot of turnovers. And that's kind of what this defense is building up to, where you spent the high 2nd round pick on Dexter, who has this crazy upside and at best can be your DeForest Buckner. And then you put your money into the linebackers. You've got your Shaq Leonard. You've got your Bobby Okereke. Put whoever you want there. I guess Edmonds would be Leonard, even though it's a different position, whatever. And then you've got Kyler Gordon, who can be like your nickelbacker, who was Kenny Moore. Like, those are the important positions for Eberflus. Edge is really not one of them. So my only concern with the Bears signing an edge rusher is maybe Eberflus is telling Poles, like, go ahead if you want to. I don't need it. It's kind of whatever for me. And he's just hoping Walker and Gibson can do enough, which, if that's what he's going for and they can, I'm not going to complain. I'm cool with it. And maybe that's what we'll be talking about next offseason is, holy shit, the Bears get enough out of bad edge rushers and we don't have to go crazy over it. We can spend our first round picks elsewhere or something. Because I know that's kind of what everyone is at right now. Spend both first round picks on an edge if we can't get Marvin Harrison Jr., which probably isn't going to happen.
I mean, the Panthers don't really have a great offense, so
that's kind of our hope.
I think the Panthers are going to be like in that, like, around the like 12 to like 16 range for pick. Like, I don't think it's going to be.
That's kind of where I'm at too.
I think 11-ish. Yeah,
they have a weak division. I mean, they're not like that bad. I think that, and they don't have like on paper they don't have that difficult of a schedule. But I know that means literally nothing. I think that they'll be a very middle of the pack team. But like David said about the whole not really putting a lot of importance on the assets on the like defensive end. There was a chart, I think, when we first got Eberflus that someone did out where they like what the Colts did for like each position, like picks wise or like money wise, and they put their high picks like kind of like in a linebacker secondary, that kind of a thing. The defensive ends, I think, were literally just like kind of what we did this offseason, where it was cheap contracts to veterans like Al-Qadim Muhammad, who obviously didn't work out in Chicago. So I think that as much as we would all like a defensive end signing, I think that David's kind of right, where it could happen, it could not happen. I don't think it's going to be like a for sure thing, even though we're all desperate for it to happen.
I think we will sign one though, because Poles did talk about this. I know it was like a few months ago now. Like, every time Poles has said something, it's happened. Like, he's straight up with the media. He doesn't really lie. So like, just talking about potentially like signing or trading for an edge rusher, I think it was like a month ago now. Hasn't happened yet, but I still feel like some type of move has to happen. Like, at least one signing, like a Clowney, like a Ngakoue. Like, we have the money to sign those guys. And I know that Eberflus doesn't care that much about edge, supposedly, but we also don't have like an interior guy like a DeForest Buckner like he did in Indy, where you can be okay with that. Maybe Javon Dexter surprises me, or maybe Zach Pickens surprises me. So maybe we do have that guy, but I do think we have to sign somebody at edge to be respectable next year.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree. I think it will happen. I'm just saying, like, to the Bears fans that think we're going to spend a lot of assets on edge rusher next offseason, kind of going with the boat of Ryan Poles neglected receiver last offseason. This offseason, he trades for DJ Moore. I don't think this is Ryan Poles neglects edge. Next offseason, he trades 2 first-round picks for Max Crosby or some crazy shit. I mean, as incredible as that would be, I don't think
the Raiders are going downhill.
I don't think the Raiders would move off Max Crosby,
they're going downhill.
unless they rehire Mike Mayock and John Gruden, and they're like, we don't want an elite edge rusher again. We don't need it. We're better than that, like they did with Mac.
Mike McDaniels sent out everything in Denver, and now he doesn't have Jimmy G because of whatever's going on over there. Maybe he said, fuck it, blow it up.
Who knows?
Anyways, Max Crosby
the point is, I wouldn't count on it. I didn't think we'd get DJ Moore either, and we did. So I'm just saying, don't count on it. But then looking at the interior of the defensive line, we talked about Billings, we talked about the rookies. Justin Jones is somebody I'm excited to see this year, not because I think he's a superstar, but just because I'm excited to see him actually playing a position that makes sense for him and not being forced into playing nose tackle, because that's just not him. He's not a great run defender. He's a good pass rusher. He's a solid run defender. Like I said earlier, he's just kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. And normally you'd want him to be a rotational 3 tech. He's kind of our best defensive tackle at the moment. So kind of is what it is there. But unless anyone else has anything to say about the defensive line, we can move on to some fun stuff and talk about the linebackers. And I've got a bit of a hot take for the linebacker position. And I know I've sung my praises about him, and I stand by it. But Jack Sanborn is kind of the odd man out here. Like, I love the guy. I think he's fantastic. But like I've said, Eberflus's base is a 4-2-5. And sure, there's going to be times when he's not running nickel. but it's not a lot. And let's say a team, really needs a linebacker. They offer you a 3rd-round pick for Sanborn. Offer you a 4th-round pick for Sanborn. Do you take that?
He was a UDFA. That's a great return.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Return on investment is fantastic there. And for a guy that's not going to play a lot of snaps and you have another guy in a rookie that you're confident in, think was fantastic value getting him in the 4th round and is just kind of similar. I feel like that's kind of a no-brainer, but I don't want to say that out loud because Bears fans will murder me. I know
if you
I
ever said
did.
that on Twitter, you would be.
No, that's what I'm saying. I've never said it anywhere else because I don't want to get murdered. But like,
he's such a bear, though.
He is, and I love Sanborn. He was one of my favorite players last year. He's one of my favorite players on the team. But I'm just saying, if you get offered a mid-round pick for him from a linebacker desperate team, I don't think you can say no. And I think there's a real world where that happens.
I will put it this way. I think from a fan perspective, I think if you say you put that on Twitter, everyone would disagree with you.
I would
But if you're looking at it from like a team building, like a GM perspective where you can't do it with your heart, you have to do it with your brain. I think that is a smart move. I think it would hurt, but if you're Ryan Poles and you're wanting to build the best roster and you don't care about emotions, which obviously he doesn't with trading away all of the fan favorites.
He is a cold-blooded killer.
That's a solid move. I don't know if I would have the heart to do it as a Bears fan, but I'm not a GM, so I mean it makes a lot of sense.
I really like Sanborn, so personally, it would be hard to say that, but if you say it that way, like a 3rd, 4th round pick, then I think you kind of have to say yeah, right? Because like you said, he's not going to be on the field that much. Now I don't think any team would offer a 3rd or 4th round pick for him at this point. I don't know.
I could see it just because we saw him play so fantastic last year.
Right.
By UDFA standards, he was the Brock Purdy of the defense, where he had no expectations and still somehow blew everyone's minds and was like, oh my God, this is a really good linebacker. And on a lot of teams, I think he'd be the number 1 or the number 2. It's just we happen to sign 2 top 15 linebackers this offseason.
He's also, he's good to have for depth though, right? That's the thing we criticize.
Yeah, but we have Sewell.
We never had roster depth.
Right. And I'm not saying I'm wanting to get rid of Sanborn and actively shopping. I'm just saying if you get that offer,
yeah.
See, I'm just trying to think of a team that offers it.
I'm sure there's some linebacker desperate.
I don't think we would get that kind of a deal for him. I just think that realistically, linebacker, no one cares about linebackers just not that valuable anymore. Even the top linebacker guys don't go for all that much. I mean, Roquan went for. I know there was a lot of outside factors going into the Roquan trade where he didn't want to be in Chicago, or I mean there was that kind of off the field thing. If you, I don't want to get into that, but that was maybe had something to do with the low trade value. But off-ball linebackers just aren't worth that much. The Lions got flamed because they went with an off-ball linebacker in the 1st round when he was projected. Talent-wise,
that was a really good pick.
Talent-wise, that was a good pick, but I think just based on value, off-ball linebackers aren't worth that much. And Roquan, a top 5 guy, was a late 2nd round pick. It just
a 2nd and a 5th.
Okay,
don't forget the 5th.
And I think realistically, if someone was to offer a trade, they would be a 6th or a 7th, and I'm not taking that.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
But if they do if hypothetically there is a 3rd or 4th, I think you would realistically have to take.
I think KC does it.
Happening.
Now, KC's linebacker core isn't bad.
I don't mind.
Who's in KC?
Nick
Bolton's really solid.
Kid they drafted last year from Wisconsin.
Drew Tranquil wasn't awful either. I mean, he's a.
Did he go to KC? Then
Willie Gay's there, and then oh my God, why can't I remember this guy? He was my favorite linebacker a year ago.
I can't remember.
He was him and Sanborn were the most fun I had
Leo
watching
Chenal?
film. Yes, Leo Chenal.
Look at me knowing stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Their linebacker core is good. And I will say I did kind of forget for a moment Roquan only went for a 2nd. So
I don't think he went for a 5th.
Probably asking a lot. I just wanted to bring that up because I was talking about it with my dad the other day. He brought it up. And I mean, I think it was a valid question. If you get offered something valid for Sanborn, I just don't think it would be the craziest thing in the world to take it. But I also wouldn't actively shop Sanborn or try to get rid of him because he's awesome. The depth is great. You're still going to have a strong side linebacker on the field from time to time. So the point is here, we have what I'm trying to say is we have an abundance of talent at linebacker. And if that isn't the most Chicago Bears thing in the world, I don't know what is.
I just think it's crazy that from like 2 years ago when we had Pace, where we had a bunch of aging talent, and and it wasn't even that great of talent, and we had zero depth. Within like 2 years, Poles completely tore down the roster, brought it up, and we have, we don't have like an elite roster or anything like that. I'm not going to be crazy and say that, but we have solid pieces at most of the positions, and we have depth at a lot of positions now.
And
all within a span of 2 years is absolutely insane. Like Poles, like I've never trusted a GM for the Bears more than Poles. Like he, like Rishab says, he says what he means. If he says something, he's going to go and do it. I know last year we had the worst roster in football, so like it's hard to judge what he's done. But like on paper, at least, he's made insane moves, and he's made like he knows how to build a roster.
I can't find many weak spots on the roster right now. Like obviously there are, like edge is a big weak spot, but besides for that, like there's not too many like glaring weak spots like we had just a year ago, right? Like a year ago we were on this podcast talking about, we have question marks at receiver, we have question marks at offensive line, every cornerback, everything, right? And just a year later, like we have replaced so many of those weak spots with actual good level talent, which I think just speaks to like how good Ryan Poles has done so far. And we have to obviously wait to see it actually happen on the football field to win games, but there's a lot to be optimistic about right now for sure.
I think there's a difference between weak spots and question marks. And like weak spots, I think definitely the defensive line is, or I should say the like interior defensive line, I would move to more of a question mark now because of the draft capital we spent. The biggest weak spot is obviously like the edge position. Outside of that, I don't really know of many like actual weak spots. I think we just have more so question marks. And even with that, I don't think we have huge question marks except maybe like center, which I mean, Whitehair is not a bad offensive lineman. And then with secondary, it's some question marks because it's just a young group. But like, we don't have definitive weak spots like we did.
Yeah. But just overall with the linebacker core, I mean, again, I know it's very high praise, and I'm not trying to say it's the same players, but we have essentially rebuilt the Bears linebacker core of the mid 2000s that was so well loved. And it's very like, the reason I say that is, number one, the players in terms of their skill sets and the type of player they are comparable, not in terms of actual talent and where they're at, just similar archetypes, so to speak. And also the defense, we're going to be running fuck ton of cover too. Like Eberflus, I have the number right here actually. Eberflus, I think, ran the most cover 2 in football last year. Second, sorry, at 23.6%. That's like insane. So it's the same type of Tampa 2 defense where you're going to be asking a lot of Tremaine Edmunds, who really came into his own last year. Like obviously he's shown a lot of potential. He's still very, very young. But last year, he really came into his own as like the guy. And there's a specific play against Miami where he was the middle linebacker. They had him drop way back, and he had this crazy PBU. Hopefully, I can put it here while I'm talking about it. Where it's just like, okay, this is exactly what Eberflus wants. This is the exact type of guy he needs. And again, archetype-wise, he's your Urlacher. I don't think he'll ever be Brian Urlacher. It'd be awesome if he was. He's your Urlacher. Yeah, he is still young. But anyways, he's your Urlacher. You've got Edwards as your Briggs, and then Sanborn is your Nick Roach, your Hunter Hillenmeyer, whoever you want to throw out there. He's that third guy that's still incredibly solid, just not a star like the other two. And all of a sudden, first and foremost, the run defense from these linebackers off the fucking chain. Edwards himself might be the best run defending linebacker in football. If not, he's top 3 or 5. Edmunds is getting a lot better there, and he's still growing in coverage. And Edwards, he's good in coverage. He just doesn't have the athletic ability that Edmunds does, so he gets left behind a little bit. But in terms of just like IQ, because again, he's one of these super, super smart Wisconsin linebackers that can read a quarterback incredibly well. He's not going to get pulled off his man. He's not going to get pulled out of his zone. Like, this linebacker core is legit. Like, there is I would say second best in the league. Second only to San Francisco. That's where I would put the Bears linebacker core. And maybe I'm forgetting somebody. I know people are going to want to throw Baltimore up there. I don't like Pat Queen, so I'm not going to do that. But it is absolutely mind-blowing what Ryan Poles has done with the linebacker core. And say what you want about linebackers being a non-valued position. In this defense, they are. It matters a lot.
When I say
So-
non-valued, I don't mean
No,
like not
I didn't
important.
mean you specifically. I just know that's
Okay.
like I'm not trying to call you out. I'm saying like I know widespread that's a thing, and even some NFL coaches like Staley in LA like live and die by linebackers. Kind of don't matter. I wasn't
because
I
I don't
wasn't
mean it's
shitting
like
on you
not
with that, I
important to like
promise.
being successful. I just think like it's not valued as like you
No,
need like an elite
yeah.
level.
And to a
I
certain
mean-
extent, you're right. I'm just saying for
A
this
lo-
specific type of defense, linebacker matters a lot.
I mean, there's teams that don't value tight end, and I feel like tight end is like a top 3 most important position. So
Yeah, especially a really good blanket tight end like what we have with.
I think
Bennett.
for young quarterbacks, tight end is
Mhm.
like insanely important.
But continuing on, we've got the secondary, and I kind of want to start with the safeties here because I feel like one player in particular kind of maybe I'm the only one still on this train, but there's a very mixed opinion. I know there has been for a while, and this year it kind of wavered with Mr. Eddie Jackson.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious what you guys have to think, especially Rishab, because I don't talk to you as often as these two. I kind of know their opinions on Eddie Jackson, but
Okay.
uh,
I mean, I like him. Like, I've been a big fan of him for like a long time. I think that last year he did prove like he's good in this defense. Right? He was playing at a Pro Bowl level before he went down with the injury, and he's also like a leader type of guy where like he's the only veteran that we have in the secondary right now that's above like age 26, 27, right? Because we got rid of DeAndre Houston Carson. So I think he has proven the ability to, be good in this defense, make plays. He had a couple picks last year, and I think that obviously the tackling thing is not good. Like, he's never going to be a good tackler, and you could say like that's an effort thing or whatnot, whatever it is. Like, I still think he offers you so much in coverage where like I still feel like he could be extended by the Bears even for the next like 2 or 3 years. I know maybe you guys might disagree with that because maybe you're not the biggest Eddie Jackson fans, but I've been a fan of this guy. I think he proved he's good in this defense, and I'm excited for him next season. I mean, he's returning from a pretty major injury, so we'll see if he can come back from that. But what do you guys think?
I guess I mean, you're
I'll let
kind of
y'all
agreeing
say your
with probably
piece.
me and Grayson.
Okay.
I'm a big Eddie Jackson fan. I've made this very clear to David like many of times. I mean, David makes sense. Like, he's not coming out of nowhere with the like negatives of Eddie Jackson's game. He's not very strong in like, he's not a good tackler like at all. He kind of shies away from contact. I feel like last year, I feel like he bought into the whole, attack the football thing that Eberflus like preached when he got here, and he did improve in that area, but he's still just not a great tackler. I don't think that'll ever be a strength of his game. But Eddie Jackson was insane last year. I think he would have been, like an all-pro level safety if he wouldn't have gotten injured. Like, he was playing at a great level. He was, like Rishab said, the leader of our defense. You need those vets to kind of come in and teach the young guys, which Eddie Jackson, like you said, is like the only vet of our secondary. We have a second-year safety, a, rookie corner, a second-year corner. Jalen Johnson's only been in the league for like 3 years, 2 or 3. So it's a young group, and he's like the one vet, like you had said. And I think that him and Brisker kind of play well together, where Brisker is insane. Like, he's a good run stopper. I mean, he led our team in sacks, which it's either really impressive or really non-impressive, depending on how you look at it. But Eddie Jackson is like one of the best ball hawking safeties in football. He's a smart player. He knows how to play the ball really well. I've never it hasn't crossed my mind about us possibly extending him, like Rishab mentioned, but I could see it happen, to be honest. Unless we spend like a high pick on a safety or something, but I don't see us doing that because I don't think we're going to roll out, all basically rookie players at all of our secondary positions. I think that Eddie Jackson probably is going to be here to stay for the relative future, I guess you could say.
I was going to ask, is he on the last year of his deal this year?
He's close. I actually completely
I don't think
forgot
it's
about
this
that.
year,
I think
but
it's next year.
Okay.
Next?
I
could
think
be
he's
wrong.
still got another year.
Yeah, because
I'll
I don't
double
know
check
about
it real
him
quick.
as being on a contract year, so I was thinking like he's not on a contract year this year. But it's probably
I think it's next.
okay.
I just found out his middle name is Paul.
Hey, we have the same middle name? Dang, bro. I got to like him more now.
You would not have expected that.
I would not have either.
Yeah, no, he's a free agent after 2024, but he'll be 31 and is
Okay, yeah, maybe don't extend him then. I mean, maybe on like a 1 or 2 year deal or something like that. But
I could, I mean, unless he like takes a huge drop off, I could see us extending him for like a year or 2.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
it kind of depends.
There
My
is a
mindset-
safety in Arizona that we could package Jackson and a pick for, because I don't like Eddie Jackson. I'm not an Eddie Jackson fan. I never liked him. I want to keep Amos over Jackson when we let Amos walk. Just no.
I'm
Yeah.
still an Amos fan. I
I
don't know.
love Amos.
I'm not,
but
just because he ran his mouth after he left.
Okay. Also, though, I don't
Everyone
know if
does
you
that.
remember like some of the screenshots he had. I mean, it probably happens when any player leaves any team, but some of the things Bears fans said to him, I feel like it was reasonable
I
for him to
mean,
talk crap.
yeah, but I don't care. How about that? Skill
I
issue,
mean,
I don't
yeah.
care.
Monty ran his mouth too, but like, you know,
Monty didn't
I
run
don't-
his mouth. He
it
just said he's
wasn't-
excited to play the
It
Bears.
wasn't really wrong.
Amos was like, Bears fans fucking suck and I hate them.
we
That's
do.
not
Most
word
of us
for word.
do.
I don't care. You don't get to say that. We get to say that. You don't.
But yeah, I
Um,
don't like Eddie Jackson. I want to get Buddha if we can. I know they're not the same type of player, but Buddha's still young. We can develop him into more of a coverage guy. Eddie Jackson needs to go. He's too old for our defense now. I know he's a leader, but like, you got Edmonds, you got Edwards, you have guys who can lead this locker room that you don't need Eddie anymore. He can go.
I don't know. I feel like we can't have all young. That's just my opinion. I mean,
Yeah.
I will admit sometimes my mindset gets like swayed by Madden, which sounds really dumb. But sometimes I'm like, oh, he's 30. That means he's useless. And then I'm like, oh wait, this is real life, not Madden. He still has a few years. And I get that he's probably going to take a step back relatively soon. But I mean, as long as you have a backup plan or something set in place, which I feel like Poles does because he always seems to have backup plans, I feel like you can kind of wait until that drop off starts to happen or something. Because last year, like I said, all pro level, I feel like he's still playing at like an elite kind of level. You can wait a little bit and let the young guys grow and learn behind Eddie Jackson before you make a move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any chance of getting traded right now because both Poles and Flus have been like super, they've been hyping him up, and like Jaquan Brisker and him, they have a good connection going right now. They both like each other. Brisker can learn from Eddie Jackson. I mean, not how to tackle, but like how to play in
He can learn
coverage.
from Buddha. Buddha knows how to tackle.
No,
What's up?
Brisker already knows how to tackle. It doesn't.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
but also, like, I feel like other than the tackling part, like Eddie Jackson is very much like an Eberflus kind of player where he forces turnovers. Eberflus has let it be known that turnovers are a big part of his defense, and Eddie Jackson causes a lot of turnovers.
What's your goal if you cannot get a turnover in defense? Is to tackle the offense. And if that you're failing at that part, which is, Miller had it spot on when he was talking about Will Anderson, if you can't tackle, you don't deserve to be on the field. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and listen, I'm to the point now where I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Eddie Jackson. Like, going into this past year, I wanted him off the team. 100%.
I still do.
Because with his tackling, it's not like his form's bad. It's not like he's trying and he's just missing. There's just a lot of business decisions from Mr. Eddie Jackson. And like, to an extent, I get that his health hasn't necessarily been the best. So maybe he's a little worried about getting hurt. But if you're playing scared on a football field, that's how you get hurt. So, there's kind of pros and cons to it. And it's like, this isn't a new thing after he's gotten hurt. This was happening back in 2018 when we were talking about him as a dark horse defensive player of the year, when he forced however many turnovers and was an all-pro. Like the Giants game, for example, there were multiple times where he saw Saquon running at him. He just said, no, I'm good. Someone else do that. Like, literally stepped out of the way. But you watch him in coverage, and there's not a lot of guys that know what they're doing back there more than he does at the safety position right now. He's incredibly smart, incredibly instinctive, has a nose for the ball. So it's like he's half of the perfect safety. He has everything you want in coverage. It's just against the run. He doesn't want to do it. Like, point blank period, it seems like he doesn't want to do it. So, some of the old heads out there are probably saying, I don't care what he can do in coverage. I want him off the team. And then some of the young guys are like, fuck tackling. I want him to lock people down. And I'm like in the middle, where I'm like, some games I'm like, oh my God, Eddie Jackson, you're gorgeous. I love you. And other games I'm like, get the fuck off my team and go work at McDonald's tomorrow. Like, it's so tough. He's so up and down for me. And I see why people like him now. I'm coming around to him. It's just, I'm very set in my ways when it comes to players that can tackle. Like Will Anderson, I wasn't as high on as a lot of people because of his tackling. Sidney Brown from Illinois. I know you're an Illinois guy, but I did not like him at all because of his tackling.
Get that. Yeah, he was not good at tackling.
Yeah. But Sidney Brown is kind of like Eddie Jackson, where the coverage is fantastic and he's super smart. It's just he can't tackle.
I think they're playing next to Brisker, right? Like his best season was in 2018. That's no coincidence.
Right.
When he played next to a guy like Amos.
Yeah.
Who could run defend.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing is you need the yin and the yang back there. And I know that's what a lot of people want to strive for, but most free safeties, right? If we want to go into the technical designations, because I know that doesn't really exist anymore. Everyone's just kind of a safety now, but you still got the, yeah. Eddie Jackson just doesn't try, and that's my issue. A lot of the safeties in the league that can't tackle, at least they're diving, at least they're making efforts. They're not jumping out of the way, and that's kind of where my issue lies. But maybe Eberflus is going to knock that out of him, and we'll see more of that. Because I will say there were plays last year where he actually stepped in front of somebody that he didn't have to. Like he could have gotten away with kind of taking a step back and letting somebody else clean up. But he actually stepped in front of somebody and did something. And I was like, okay, Eberflus might be God. He might have fixed Eddie Jackson because you can't teach heart. And I'm not trying to say it's a heart thing. I'm not going to question the man's work ethic. I'm not going to question the man's dedication to the game. But that was kind of where my head was at. Like, I don't know what else could explain it other than maybe he just doesn't want to. But this year, it's like he was actually trying a little bit before he got hurt. It still wasn't perfect. So if he continues to grow in that, like I'll be an Eddie Jackson fan. I'll eat my words. I'll make good with him, especially after finding out all the shit he dealt with off the field. Like that man has been through the ringer. And hell, maybe that was it. Maybe his heart wasn't in it. And if that was the case, it's honestly kind of valid, given all the shit he was dealing with. So like I'm trying to stray away from shitting on Eddie Jackson as much as I used to. But I still can't consider myself like a full-time fan. I still can't say I love the guy. However, I do love his partner in crime in Jaquan Brisker. That man is a animal on the field. And I know Rishab is leader. Yeah, we were all talking about how upset we were that we traded him for a second-round pick and all that, or traded Mack away for a second-round pick. But we got Jaquan Brisker with that second-round pick, so I can't be too mad because the dude was awesome last year.
Oh, yeah.
Like, as a rookie, he was one of the better... Again, you don't want to get into the designations anymore, but one of the better strong safeties in the NFL. I love Brisker.
Did he get a Pro Bowl?
Was it?
No. We didn't have a
single got hurt.
Pro Bowler, did we?
Did we not?
No, we didn't have one.
Helmley got a...
Jackson would have gotten it if he stayed healthy, and
yeah,
I don't know. Have gotten in just from like hype, but yeah, he wasn't going to get in because of the passing stats.
Yeah, but like with Brisker though, I mean, he was one of my favorite players in the draft, especially at the safety position. And I mean, at the time, I was kind of hoping we got a receiver. In hindsight, I'm happy we picked Brisker over any of the receivers that were available. But like, I was a big Brisker guy. I think I had him as my number 2 safety behind Kyle Hamilton, which I'm still a big Hamilton guy, but I feel like he didn't do. I mean, obviously, I watch more Bears games than Ravens fans, so Ravens games. I'm not sure if Hamilton had a great year, but I feel like Brisker played better than he did. But Brisker, I'm a huge fan of, and I think that he could be like an elite level safety for a long time once he fully develops. To go kind of back onto the Eddie Jackson thing, I mean, for us to replace him, I feel like there'd have to be like an obvious upgrade or a chance for an obvious upgrade. I don't think we just kind of like get rid of him to replace him with some low level starter or anything like that. But I think honestly, like our safety duo is one of the stronger points on our entire roster.
I think our secondary as a whole is.
It's much improved, yeah.
My thing with the secondary, I don't like. I like the potential of our group. I'm a big Jalen guy. I'm not sure how he fits in the Eberflus scheme, just because I mean he's a good corner. Like I'm not denying that, but he's just not a big turnover guy. And I know Eberflus loves that in the defense, but I mean Jalen is great in coverage, so you can't really complain about it.
I'll put it this way: if you ever doubt if Jalen Johnson is fitting in the Bears defense and with Eberflus, just remember in the second round, he had Ryan Poles take Jalen Johnson with better ball skills, because that is what Tyreek Stevenson is. He's a more athletic Jalen Johnson with better ball skills. So, yeah, Jalen doesn't force a ton of turnovers, but it never hurts to have a quarterback that can just take people out of games, and that's what he does. And we've seen him do that against elite receivers like Davante Adams. Like, he has given Davante Adams the work. So now you have him, but younger, quicker, better ball skills, and Kyler Gordon, who in the back half of the year when the Bears actually put him in a position and didn't just have him play him wherever, looked great. So the Bears secondary is awesome. Like they are assembling a no-fly zone in Chicago.
Yeah, my point was like I like the pieces like Jalen Johnson. I'm a fan of, and like you said, he doesn't have great ball skills, but he's great in coverage. I would just consider the cornerback group specifically more of a question mark than a weakness or anything like that, and that's only because I mean they're young draft picks, whatnot. They aren't what's the word I'm looking for, like
Proven.
Yeah, they're not proven in the league yet, so you don't really know what you have. I really like them, like Kyler Gordon, and again, bringing back like the 1920 football drive thing. They were really big on Kyler Gordon. They were surprised he was still there when they picked him last year, and he was one of my players I was hyped on from last season. I'm a big fan of Kyler Gordon. I think if they reach their potential, that we have one of the best secondaries in all of football. It just kind of depends on once they get to that point. And also, cornerback is a lot harder of a position to play when you don't have the pressure up front from the defensive line. So I feel like they're going to be better than what the stats show next year, but I would still consider it a question mark.
That's fair.
I like the physicality we have in the secondary. I mean, besides for Eddie Jackson, right? Like everybody else hits you hard. They put you in the dirt. I mean, Kyler Gordon too is one of the best tacklers I feel like at the cornerback spot in the NFL. Like we saw him multiple times last year, just like lay into somebody, bulldoze somebody to the ground. And like you said, like Tyreek Stevenson is also super scrappy. He's very athletic. He's a hard hitter type of guy. Even Charles Smith, the guy out of Minnesota, I think. I obviously haven't watched much of him, but based on the scouting report, people did say he was a good tackler too. So I think we're building like a cohesive unit now in the secondary where we have an identity back there. Kind of like, I don't want to say we're going to be the Legion of Boom or anything, but like we have kind of an identity like
it's
that.
Got the vibe to it.
Guys, athletic.
We have a type of player.
Yeah, I mean the entire team has a type, right? Because Ryan Poles only went after if you had RAS over like 9.0, right? So yeah, I'm excited about the secondary, but like you said, it is unproven right now. So like we can't crown Tyreek Stevenson or like even Kyler Gordon for only having good games so far, but potential is super high.
Yeah, I mean, Tyreek Stevenson is someone in this draft I was super high on. I had him like a late first round grade. In my opinion, he was the best press man corner in the draft. Like, I mean, obviously, draft pick, you can't crown him yet, but my God, I'm so excited to see what he's going to do in this defense. I'm so excited just to see in general what's going to happen with this defense. Because again, outside of that front four, there's a lot of exciting things happening. So just kind of two quick things real quick to wrap up. Number one, we got to talk about the special teams, mainly because I know Jared's going to yell at me if I don't.
Yeah, I was waiting for it. No.
Yeah. Special teams is good. Cairo Santos is kind of in a weird spot. I feel like that's kind of the big talking point of our special teams.
Andre Schmitz. Nicole loves him, and I know that he I've seen a little bit of him. He's good.
Yeah.
Santos I like.
Out of what? Syracuse?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I like Santos. I just feel like when it comes to accuracy, except for extra points for whatever reason, when it's close, solid. He just has like the weakest leg on a kicker I've ever seen.
Nagy ruined him is what happened. When he had him kick, when he had that streak of making like 28 in a row, and the Nagy was like, all right, we're going to kick a 65-yarder.
That was insane. I was watching the game with my girlfriend, I think, and I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, he literally can't kick that far.
Yeah.
Like, if he does all of his leg into it, he's still not kicking it that
far.
I
unironically stand by the idea that Nagy ruined Santos's confidence. Did you think you have like a historic run going with how many you've made in a row, and then you just get asked to do the impossible, and now your record's broken? You look like an idiot. You, by technicality, lost the game for your team. Like, that's got to weigh on somebody.
Was that a Nagy decision? Because that was against the Steelers when Nagy was out with COVID, wasn't it?
That was a Niners game because I was at that game. That was the one that Nagy was not there.
Oh, okay.
Nagy was actually there, yeah.
So it was the time.
Yeah, so it was Nagy.
Yeah. He did ruin.
Okay. Common Matt Nagy bullshit.
I'm sorry. I thought I could save Matt Nagy for 5 seconds, but no.
No, you can't.
There's no saving Matt Nagy.
Matt Nagy. I still feel bad for him, though.
He seems like a nice dude. He's
got a ring now,
coach.
So. Yeah, I just feel bad for him getting booed at his son's football game. That's all I'm talking about.
That was against my high school, by the way. I went
really?
Yeah, so I saw on Snapchat a bunch of people like chanting that at the game, and I felt bad for him, obviously, but it's a thing where like I guess if you have a family member in sports, like that type of stuff happens. It's not okay.
It's not morally
Yeah.
right, but it's just gonna
It
happen.
happens.
happen.
Yeah, no, I get
Feel
it.
bad for him. He has a ring now. He won with the Chiefs. We can stop feeling bad for him. We can start ripping on him again. So
Yeah.
Now, the more important position than kicker is obviously punter.
punter, yeah.
We
Go
love a
ahead.
good punter. We love Trenton Gill. I think he's a top 5 punter in the league. I don't know. I love Trenton Gill. Honestly, I think of all of the punters drafted last year, I think he's by far the best one. Which I mean, maybe doesn't take that much, but I'm a big Trenton Gill guy. It partly has to do with because the fact he's like my twin, but realistically, he's a good punter. Yeah, my girlfriend has told me that the one other man she thinks is attractive is Trenton Gill because we love Trenton Gill. I'm a big fan of his. Actually, on the Bears TikTok, they had posted something like the dupes thing. They did like a player and then a celebrity and then it says like dupes. I guess it's a trend. I don't know. But I had commented the fact that Trenton Gill was my dupe per se. And the Bears responded and agreed with it. And then you can see on TikTok, if people view your profile, some random girl viewed it and I clicked on it and it was Trenton Gill's girlfriend. So they're hypothetical. Like there's a scenario where Trenton Gill knows I exist. So that's my boy. I also post on every Bears post ever with Trenton Gill that he's my twin. I'm trying to get attention.
Your whole name isn't like Trenton Gill.
Trenton Gill is the GOAT.
There you go.
That's my Twitter handle. I love Trenton Gill.
Yeah, and then what else is there on special teams? We re-signed Pat Scales, who is still
the
trucking,
legend.
the longest tenured Bear, the swaggiest long snapper in football.
The first Bears game I went to was not last year, but the year before in Detroit. In Chicago against Detroit. And where we sat was like right next to like the kicking tent or kicking net. So there was like Santos, Scales, and Pat O'Donnell, and Patrick Scales just seems like such a fun dude. Like he was interacting with the crowd like the entire time. Like,
yeah, again, like if you look at those videos the Bears post of their players walking out and answering the questions, one of them was like, "Who would you not give the ox to?" And it was Pat Scales. Everyone said Pat Scales because he's like a big country guy, and he just walked up and someone came out and was like, "Hey Pat," everyone said you, and he was like, "Really?" He just seems so defeated. And then he was like, "I don't know what they're talking about. I got a great taste in music." And then he just walked away. But yeah, he seems like such a fun, goofy dude. He's like the fun uncle of the Bears roster.
His celebration whenever we have like good punts where he does like the fist pumping thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to make a hype video of him back in like, I think it was like 2021. Where, like, who was their punter back? Pat O'Donnell, right? Like he asked me to make a hype video of him after I made a hype video for Eddie Pinheiro before that year. He got cut. That was like when we first signed, I think, Cairo Santos. So he got cut after that. But I was like, they were like talking about my videos like in the locker room, like the special teams guys were, and they asked me to make a hype video for them. But I was like, how do I possibly make a hype video for a long snapper? So I could have tried to do it, but
He's still there. You still have a
now
chance.
is your time.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, I got to put something together. Just
I wish I knew how to edit videos whatsoever.
See, if I knew how to edit videos, I would have like 3 Kari hype videos posted by now. Which, speaking of players knowing you exist, Kari knows I exist, and he follows me on Twitter, and that's my biggest flex.
I want
that
Trenton
is my
Gill to
absolute
follow me.
biggest.
That's my
flex.
only goal.
Yeah. And then outside of that, you got kick returner, punt returner. Velus is probably going to return kicks. He was great at in college. Punt returner, if he makes the roster, I would assume is Pettis. If not, someone like Tyler Scott could do it. Just for the love of Christ, do not put Velus back there. He cannot field a punt to save his life. I don't know.
I mean, for kick return wise, like Khalil Herbert was apparently a really good kick returner in college.
Yeah.
And I feel like that could help it. I feel like he'll make the roster. He's not going to get cut. If anything, it would be like a trade, but like for him to make the roster and like get some playing time.
So what you're saying is Velus Jones has no use and should get cut.
I mean, I think like I like offenses who have that like gadget guy, and I feel like Velus Jones kind of
Tyler
fits that.
Scott is that
Tyler
better.
Scott exists.
Velus ranked number 3 though in like I think like average kickoff return yards.
Really?
Kickoff. Yeah, he was up there. Like when he actually got it out and hang onto the ball, like he was actually good. Like,
I was gonna say he had a couple nice returns last year, but I didn't know it was to the point where his average was that high.
I feel like kick returns he didn't fumble. It was just punts. But
it was punts he would fumble. Which, to be fair, punts and kicks are kind of a different thing. Like punts, you're probably a little more scared when you're catching that ball because you could get leveled immediately. Kicks, you have a little bit of a cushion.
You can correct me if
And
I'm
Bayless is a
wrong.
small dude, so like,
Also fair.
I
but
get it.
There was something I had seen on Twitter where I know it was for at least one of the Giants or Washington games where their punter was left-footed, and it changes the trajectory of how like the ball comes at you. And it may have been both, but it was definitely one of them. I think it was the Giants one maybe, and that's why, because he had fumbled twice or something, that the ball comes at you differently, so you kind of have to catch it differently. And that like the Bears, like this offseason, I believe, signed like a training camp kind of punter guy who's left-footed to kind of
I did see that. I forgot about that.
So I mean, it's still his fault. Like your job is to catch the ball, but I mean, it's a little bit of an excuse. I mean, honestly, I could see a scenario where they cut Velus Jones. I think it's relatively unlikely because of the draft pick. We want to at least see him develop a little bit, but I think there's a scenario.
Yeah. So, just to wrap things up, because we are at 2.5 hours. I am so sorry I've kept y'all for so long.
Last year it was like 2:45. I think it was something like that.
This will be the longest one, just because I can talk for hours about the Bears. And I always, but just to kind of wrap things up, kind of a 2-in-1 question. Outside of Fields, who are you most excited to watch this year? And just kind of like, what do you think would be a ceiling and a floor for the Bears record-wise, do you think, this year?
I guess I still stole the spot. Okay. Player I'm most excited for, I mean, there's Trenton Gill, obviously. I really like Roshan Johnson because the hometown guy, but I think I might be stealing an answer from David here, but I want to go with Cole Kmet. I feel like this is definitely the season that he like becomes that top tier tight end kind of guy. He kind of showed it towards the tail end of last year. Big fan of Cole Kmet. I think we probably all are, but I'm excited, and I think this can be that one year where not just Bears fans, but fans of the league as a whole kind of start to respect him. So I would go with Kmet. As for record-wise, I think our floor, if hypothetically like Fields isn't that guy, he doesn't take that step, our defense, like the weakness on the defensive line kind of shows. I think at lowest we win 5-6 games as our floor. Our ceiling, I think we win. I don't think we have that high of a ceiling unless Fields becomes like an MVP candidate, which I think is going to be another year removed from. But I think our ceiling is in that 10, maybe pushing it 11 win range, but I don't think that's super realistic. I think our realistic mark is, I think I said the same exact record last year, but like 8 or 9 wins. I'd probably say 8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for my favorite, I think favorite player for next year, I think I'd say DJ Moore. I know that's like the obvious answer, but we haven't had a receiver like him in a long, long time. And like, I'm really excited to see how he meshes with Justin Fields, the plays he's going to make and all that. And I think it was a brilliant trade by Ryan Poles. So, I'd say DJ Moore. And then as for my record prediction, kind of the same with you. I agree, Jared, that, the floor is probably like 5 or 6 wins, maybe even lower if Justin Fields is bad next season. Like, he has to be straight up bad for us to have a record like that, because I feel like we have added enough around him at this point where like we should be winning games with that, at least some games, right? So floor is that. In that situation, I feel like Justin Fields, he wouldn't be on the team long term. We'd probably go after a quarterback then in the draft, as much as I hate saying that, which I don't think that's going to happen, but that's like the floor. And then ceiling, 10, 11 wins, I would agree with. I think I actually predicted 9 or 10 in my video, which does seem a little bit optimistic, but like we've seen these one-year turnarounds so often in the NFL. Like the Jaguars from last year, worst team in the NFL, spend a lot of money, get some receivers, and they win a playoff game. So it's possible for the Bears. I don't think we're going to be like winning the division this year, because it's probably the Lions to lose, as weird as that sounds, but I do think we're going to have a fun season. So like 9-10 wins is my prediction.
Okay. I got Mooney as my guy. I love him so much entirely, and him taking the number 2 spot and taking the step back away from the number 1, where he's got to deal with players like Sauce Gardner and Jair Alexander, it's gonna be such a more polished game from him, so he doesn't have to deal with those top talents. As for prediction, I still think our low is 8 wins, 9 losses, obviously. And I think that just if something isn't clicking on the offensive side of the ball, where like Fields isn't feeling more or something like that happens, we still can scrim out some wins, because we were in a lot of games last season, and then with a healthy wide receiver core, we should be in a lot more games and should win a lot more than we did last season. And on the high side, I think we have 11 wins on the high side. I think that's our bar right now. I do think that the Lions may lion, and they will eventually lose out on the number 1 seed in the division. And the Vikings had a negative point differential, and they got worse this season, no matter who says otherwise. So I do think we could get our seed. We'll still probably be like the 3-4 seed in the conference, but I do see us making the playoffs this season. If not, I don't know.
Yeah, so my favorite player is tough just because I obviously love so many guys on this team. My answer probably would have been Cole Kmet. If not, I got to go with Edmonds. I obviously got to shout out Kari Blasingame as well. He's my boy. He's always going to be my favorite. But Edmonds is probably the player I'm most excited to watch because, like I said, growing up, my favorite player on the Bears was Brian Urlacher. I love a big, hulking linebacker that isn't afraid to get dirty and can also do something in coverage. And that's exactly what Edmonds is. We haven't had a guy like that. Like, sure, we had Roquan. He was great. Different type of player. These small, athletic linebackers, they're cool. They're just not fun to me. I like the old school big guys that'll punch you in the throat coming downhill. He's got, like 99th percentile arm length and shit, so he can jump up and doing crazy things. I'm so excited to watch Edmonds be the centerpiece of this defense. And as for a record prediction, I agree with Jarett. I do think like 5-6 wins is kind of the floor for this team because even if Fields doesn't improve as a passer, the run game is going to carry. And the only way the Bears are anywhere close to where they were last year is if Fields regresses, and I don't think there's a world where that happens with all of the weapons put around him.
Mm-hmm.
So as for a ceiling, I'm going to say 12 wins just because of how weak the NFC is and the sheer potential that Fields has. And like we've said, the big weakness of this team is edge. Maybe they have one, maybe they don't, but that's not a huge weakness for Eberflus. So realistically, if everything clicks, these guys play to the level they're supposed to, this is a really fucking good football team. Mm-hmm. Nobody's going to talk about it because of how young it is and how bad we were last year, but the sky really is the limit for Chicago. So I think realistically, you probably end up with about 9 or 10 wins, and I think the Bears can get the 7 or 6 seed in the NFC. But I do think there's a world where the Bears not only win the division, but are one of the 3 best teams in the NFC, because the NFC South, the division winner is probably going to have like 8 wins. So I'm really, really, really excited for what the Bears are doing this year, as we all are. Mm-hmm. But that being said, I think that about wraps it up, unless anyone has any last minute tangents they want to go on. I hope you don't, because I'm really going to go eat.
3-hour episode.
Right. But thank you guys so much for coming on. I truly appreciate it, giving me 2 hours and 40 minutes of your time and counting. And just real quick, if you guys want to plug anything, go for it. The floor is yours.
I'll go.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Go, Jarett. Go, Jarett. Go.
I mean, I don't really do the whole other podcast again. The guys have kind of been off the grid, but I do kind of do my own little thing, which is JRice Sports. It's on YouTube. It's on TikTok. You can also follow me on Twitter if you want. I'm a lot more active on Twitter than anything else because I tweet about the Bears like 24/7. But there you go.
Yeah, you can follow me at DaWindyCity Productions on YouTube and Twitter. I also tweet like him a lot, reacting to Bears news, and I'll be coming out with videos for the upcoming season on my YouTube channel. So yeah, thanks for having me on though. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I expect a Kari Blasingame hype video here soon. Even if it's like 2 minutes long, I don't care.
I'm trying to get that going. I'll tag you in it for sure.
Hell yeah.
You can see it first.
I love that. I love that.
I'm BatDuck on YouTube, Twitter, whatever you want to find me. I'll probably I follow all these guys, so you can find them through them. I don't do sports stuff on my YouTube. I do movies and TV shows and comic bullshit. But if you want to follow me on Twitter, I would tweet all the time about football because I'm mutuals with these guys and they blow up my phone. So I have to respond to everything they say.
Yeah. But there will be links to all that in the description, obviously. But yeah, that's going to do it for this. I don't know what I'm going to call these yet. I called them team previews last time around. We'll probably stick with that. So it's going to do it for the first one of the year. Thank you all for watching. Definitely make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed and comment down below if you made it this far, who your favorite player on the Bears is right now. You know, I'm not going to make you guys run through it. We've done enough, but you know, whoever your favorite player is, just comment it down below. And make sure to subscribe. We've got 31 more of these coming out over the course of the summer. We're going to cover every single team. So yeah, with that, I hope you all have a wonderful day, night, evening, afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope you enjoy it because you're all wonderful people and you deserve it.